Greetings all, and welcome to another Wu-Sabat Outformation class UK. Thank you, Hara'im Habab Jadefre Hatat, for the introduction, and who will be your facilitator for today's class. This class is brought to you by All Eyes on Egypt, Midlands and the North, as part of United Sapiens Worldwide. My name is Nabab Kakni-Hess, and I'm your student teacher for today. This is an interactive session, so please feel free to ask questions throughout so that you get full and proper understanding, and we'll do our best to answer your questions today. So this class is the proof by way of Nabab Yaanuwn part 8, but focused on the science of relationships, and we've been doing some part building up that we did last week, and we'll continue that today before we get to the conclusion, I would say probably by about part 9 at least of that section of it. It's quite a large book, so we've been covering different aspects, and it allows us to bring other aspects of the doctrine of Wu-Sabat in as we seek to bring you up to speed or educate you in that regard, or inform you, maybe a better way to say it, about things that you need to know for the day and time you're in, and to aid your transformation or ascension journey. Okay, so I'm not going to run the polls today, just because it's sometimes a little bit dodgy on Zoom at the moment. So if you can hear me clearly, just confirm so in the chat by putting a 1. If you're having issues and you cannot hear me clearly, then put a 0 in the chat area. And if you can see the visuals, put a let's say a 2. And if you cannot see the visuals on the screen, then put a 3 in the chat. And so if you can hear me clearly, 1. If you can't hear me clearly, then put a 0 in the chat. And you can just check if there's any issues coming across with my voice and the music in the background. And as I say, if you can see the visuals, 2. If you can't see the visuals, put a 3. Now, on some devices, you may need to swipe left or right in order to see what we're showing on the screen at the moment, which is a sort of picture of a newspaper with some graphics on it. Okay, moving along then. Got a few things to get through today. Quick overview of the Zoom platform for those who have not been on it before, which I'll do in a second. But we'll open the session correctly in a cultural way. We are Sabians, and reintroducing us back into the knowledge of who and what we are versus what we became by way of bad information in this society. So the master teacher, who we call the master teacher, Nabab Yaanuwn, or Dr. Malachi KZ York, has reintroduced back to us our own language in this day and time, called Misbatia, or Sabaic English equivalent. And I'm going to start off with this affirmation called Partak Yud. I'll say it in Sabaic first, and then translate it back into English. It's just as I say, for us to initiate sort of positive thinking, connecting with our ancestors, so that you and I, etc., and those on the call have a positive experience in the class today. So let me just going to pause the music in the background. I just want to do this. Okay. Abdoi Kalel Tabaluat, Wufakur, Amekasamun, Empa Paut, Naut Muktad Baded Pata, Naut Muklas, Baded Yaanuwn, Pa Takyud. Anuki Jawef Pa Ashuk Empa Paut, Wu Kalel Ashuk Kawun Jawef Nea. Anuki Kasam Un Empa Paut, Wu Papa Ut Kasam Un Emnea. Anuki Wahu Ameh Papa Ut. Wu Papa Ut Wahu Ameh Nea. Nakuk Kadur Naju Ameh Kasam Un Em Papa Ut. Wu Habub Ameh Mushachas Nakuk Kadur Kawan Kalel Pafef Nakuk Dayur Jawef Papa Ut. Ameh Wase Ameh Tayarni Kawun Lakei Bakoy Jawef Papa Ut. Anuki Abed Bin Afashni Papa Ut Kawun Anuki Papa Ut Kadur Nakuk Kadur Papa Ut Amul Nakuk Amul. So we started off by saying begin all prayers and thinking as a part of the all. And then we said no God or deity except Ptah, no savior except Yaanuwn, the affirmation. And then we said I am in the divine love of the all expanding, and all divine love is in me. I'm a part of the all expanding, and the all expanding is a part of me. I am one as the all expanding, and the all expanding is one as me. I can succeed as a part of the all expanding and fail as an individual person. I can be all that I want in the all expanding, as long as my want is to stay in the all expanding. I am never by myself. The all expanding is I am. The all expanding can, I can. The all expanding does, I do. Yeah, so that was Tak Yud, a very famous and positive affirmation in United Sabians worldwide, and a reminder to us all how we connect and how we're a part of existence. Yeah, which we've been touching upon, say, in previous parts of this class. Yeah, and I suppose where there's a lot of controversy in the media. Well, I say controversy. There's stuff going on in the media at the moment because of, I think, a new Netflix documentary done by Jada Pinkett Smith, if my understanding, or she's helped produce it. And Cleopatra the Seventh is shown as a Nagaru woman in the actual documentary, and it's thrown up this what has previously been this issue of saying that the ancient Egyptians were not black. And part of us, them trying to erase us out of his story and our stories, if we just popped up when slavery came along, or the so-called slave trade came along. And the fact that we are now, as I say, coming back into who we are, we're speaking our language again, is some of the keys, as I say, of showing, as I say, who and what we are. You look at the Tamaray that we built before it was raided. You saw, Negroids, blacks coming together from different parts of the world, demonstrating by rebuilding that which our ancestors have built, and saying more importantly, us re-speaking a language, as say, tailored for us in this day and time is a significantly important step for those who claim to be Egyptians, but the Egyptians were not Muslims. You understand? So what was the spiritual science that they dealt with? So everybody wants to complain and say they're not black, they were Arabs. Okay, that's cool. But everywhere else on that continent were blacks. And I say there's more pyramids in Sudan than there are in what is called Egypt. And it's a fact that the large pyramid, the one obviously the largest in the world, the pyramid in Giza, the pharaoh, who they refer to as Khufu, went down south to get the plans, overstood, to restore or add onto the existing structure that was there. He didn't build it from scratch. So many will want to claim that we are not the Kadem Mukhmatu, you understand? So we can even speak that in the language, Kadem Mukhmatu, the ancient Kadem Mukhmatu, Egyptians, as we would refer to that terminology as, and they had nothing to do with a Quran, you understand? A Prophet Muhammad, yes, overstood, Abu Bakr, Yeah, all of these characters out of the degree of Islam, which is the people, as I say, who rule Egypt today. Understood? Yeah, have co-opted our stuff, and obviously have used it to, make money, build an economy out of it, which is, whatever it is, fair enough. They're in control. However, they don't have a connection to the science, the culture. You understand? It's something that they're studying. It's something that they have to dig up and uncover. Where's this esoteric connection to it? Do you understand? Why aren't they dressing or some link to how those ancient people dressed? Oftentimes when they put the stuff on, it's on a mockery thing. Do you understand? It's not even on a proper, serious connection or being able to explain. It's something that they've studied, something that they've uncovered. It's not something that's a part of who they are and who they're being. So when you go there, yeah, you can see the full commercialization of it. And I suppose if you want to be a guide or show people around and to the sites or whatever, you have to study for a fairly lengthy amount of time, for 4 or so years, to become a formal or official guide. And you have to say their narrative of how they want the story told. And if you veer from it, then you're going to get the sack. Understood? So, there are many things there which even to date they haven't even uncovered, they would say themselves. Many of the things they say that have been buried over time by natural nature. But as I say, they don't understand the full sciences of it, and even don't really understand how it was constructed and built, in the sense, and the relationship that we had with our ancestors by way of the spiritual science known as Wu-Sabat, which is directly related to race. Now, many people may have come into the country around the coastal areas and mixed in, which is why you see a difference between those of us of our race in Central Africa and those of our race around the borders, in the south, or the coastal areas, because obviously if you're by the coast, then foreigners either coming in by way of invasion of culture. Doesn't always mean war invasion. It just means describing a mixing of people coming in, understood, which may change the way in which your culture previously was set. By those coastal areas, you see mixing in by Arabs. Understand? Obviously, from the word Arabia, it means basically nomadic. In fact, Arabat is the word for car in Arabic. Understand? And it means a nomadic, obviously, type people. We obviously originated down south in Africa. You understand? That's where the oldest bones are found. So say from the Sands people, and migrated up. And what we'll find out today, that we are split into 9 different subgroups or species of Negroid. In the sense, we have many different looks from, as I say, this kind of caramel, golden type color, with type curls, all the way to very dark, what people might describe as blue-black. All of it part of the Negroid or Nagaru race, do you understand? And I say others have mixed in with us. So there will be many who try to tie themselves famously into the vine of the divine. You understand? Let's say it that way. Yeah, because they want to be part of our story, understood? And so this is why they have seemingly throughout history, as modern history, sought to depict the ancient Egyptians as other than black, so that the Tyrones, the Leroys, you understand, who have the Agneses, you understand? I don't know, but it's different kind of black names, you understand? In our communities, won't see themselves or won't see the greatness of themselves in the many different monuments, statues, etc., that were left behind. You understand? And the media, through the television, has played its role by way of ghostational and six ether forces in trying to, or seeking to tell a story, which, as we know, has programmed our subconscious mind so that Egypt, which is in Africa, is a bad place. Understand? So throughout the religious narratives that have been perpetrated through the monotheistic religions, we have found, as I say, that they've made us in opposition to this place called Egypt because of the whole Moses story, Joseph story, so on and so forth. You understand? Unproven, by the way, unproven stories. None of their stories can be proven factually in history. They can't prove there's a Moses. They can't prove that some guy named Joseph interacted with ourselves as the Egyptians. And if there's any, better record keepers on the planet, please present them, because us as the ancient Africans and ancient Egyptians kept meticulous records, you understand, and put them on the walls so that they would last throughout the ages. You understand? There's no record of their biblical, Torah-based, you understand, and even Quranic stories, as I say, in our story. So let's say them trying to tie themselves into the vine, and the outrage that we could be the ones, you understand, mentally connected to or responsible for the development of that culture, seems to incense people. But when, white people were making all these movies depicting themselves as the ancient Egyptians, no one had a damn thing to say. You understand? No one had nothing to say about it. Elizabeth Taylor played Cleopatra. There's not a word said. As soon as it's associated with blacks, all of a sudden now people want to jump up and down, because they know the real truth. You can't hide. They make all these kind of excuses why the noses were knocked off and things of that nature. Listen, we know what it is. In Europe, in a certain period of time, they had a narrative associating blacks with monkeys and beasts to justify, obviously, their acts of horrific acts of kidnapping and slavery. Now they go into Africa and all these modern discoveries of this higher technology. Well, then how could it be these same monkeys, etc., that we were enslaving? It didn't fit that narrative, you understand? And obviously the hate, the jealousy came through, and this narrative, as I say, has permeated itself through the very sciences, and education facilities and disciplines that record anything about ancient times today. Understood? And so we can never get rid of wrong racism if, as I say, we're not going to be factual and truthful. At the end of the day, we're all the human race, but some people want to be on the hater vibe, you understand, and want us continue to live off of what other races have done and not give the true credit. So we can't build a foundation of love and unity based on lies and hatred, you understand, which you see in their Bible in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, where their God put hate between the races and responsible for the isms and schisms, so on and so forth. So one of the things that had to have been cleaned up, and one of the reasons why we have, in the culmination of many great teachers, a master teacher in the form of Dr. Malachi KZ York today, is simply for these types of issues that have to be cleaned up, and the record has to be set straight of who is who, understood, on the planet Earth today. Now, webinar, as I say, settings. If you need to adjust your audio settings for any reason, the option here is on the left, and select everyone as a distribution option, not hosts and panelists. That will ensure that everybody can see your message, what you post. And it's basically generally anything that's not questions, so any kind of feedback, etc. Things could be related to what we're talking about. Put it in the chat. But if you do have a question for the student teacher today, which is myself, then there's two ways to do that. So you can raise your hand, which will enable you to come live and ask your question directly, and you'll see, if you press that button at the appropriate time, you will see this message appear on your screen. Simply unmute yourself and you'll come through live and can ask your question directly. If you've dialed in today, then *9 to raise your hand, and when prompted, *6 to unmute yourself. You will have the ability to mute and unmute yourself at will. So once you've asked your question or if you finish speaking, then mute yourself back again so that not to disturb the rest of the call. And if you do not want to come through live and speak, then if you put your written question by pressing the Q&A button in the chat, then Hara Mhabab Jadefre Hatap, as your facilitator for today, will ask that question on your behalf. And as I say, we'll do our best to answer your questions today. We'll move past that part. No poll quizzes today. So we give thanks to Mary Abba Akran York, known as Fatima, as the mother of Dr. Malachi KZ York, also known as Pa Nabab Yaanuwn, but I'll refer to him as the master teacher today because he's a master at teaching, so that's what we affectionately refer to him as. But we are a matriarchal culture, nation, tribe, and so as in line with natural nature, the sacred feminine is first. So the clan mother in our tribal context as Imasi Native Americans, and so links to our African heritage as well, because we walked over to the Americas when the continents were one landmass, which the Greeks referred to as Pangaea. But when the continents separated through continental drift, we then flew, sailed, do you understand? There are many means that we went to the Americas on holiday, understood? So we are the original or the indigenous Native Americans to that land, known as the Anasazi, falsely called the Olmecs today, and ruled by clan mothers. So you see Mary Abba Akran York in the clan mother attire.
My apologies for interrupting Nabab Kakni Hess, but I can still see the Partak Yud on the main screen. It hasn't moved on to the graphic of the clan mother.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. It's my fault. Yeah. How is it now? Is it showing the same thing?
It's still showing the Partak Yud.
What's it showing now?
It's now showing the clan mother.
Okay, indeed. So tell tap for that. So thank you for that. So so we see the clan mother in her. Sorry, we see our clan mother, or the mother of Dr. Malachi KZ York, who's now transitioned. One of our ancestors now, so that's Muslafu. And as I say, clan mother attire, and as we I think expressed previously, you can see these lotus flowers in the symbol, very common in Kadem Mukhmatu, ancient Egypt. Kadem Mukhmat, Mahmat, very famous, a symbol of regeneration and a symbol associated with the female as well. So, as I say, clan mother, matriarchal society. That is the mother of Dr. Malachi KZ York. Now, sacred masculine, his father, Al-Hadi Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi. So, Mary Abba Akran York, I should say, gives the Ghanaian heritage out of a place called Takoradi in Ghana, West Africa. And here is the Sudanese heritage on this side through Al-Hadi Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi, tying into the Mahdi family. Here in Sudan, very famous family, and so specifically, as I say, going back to this significantly great individual, Muhammad Ahmad Al-Mahdi of the Fuzzy Wuzzy Dongolawi tribe, born in 1885 to 1885. So both sides of the family have a great heritage in that regard. And then we see here Dr. Malachi KZ York at age 25, where he says he was initiated, as I say, with higher entity to pass on the information that we need today. And that may sound crazy, and so it should possibly in this society today. However, as I say, we find out that the renewal of our story takes place from an outformational context, so outformational ancestors providing and setting the record straight to feed us knowledge, cosmic energy into our informational present being in order to transform us. So we have outformation that provides, is transformed into information in order to transform us. And that being in ancient, in Wu-Sabat, ancient Tamaray, was known as Yaanuwn, Nabab, Akhtar, you understand, who the Egyptians referred to as Tahuti. That made different guys. So a vehicle or a vessel that our ancestors could speak through. And so we don't dig up the bones of our ancestors. Our outformation, say, comes from above, and feeding into us here. And our culture, as you know, in ancient Africa, is what would be today described as an extraterrestrial culture. The word extraterrestrial means extra, to terra, and the word astral, yes, extra-terra astral, astral from the skies, so sun rays that are emitted from the sun and arrive here on Earth, understood, traveling at what they consider to be the speed of light. When they arrive here, that would be extra-terra astral. And meteorites are extra-terra astral, extraterrestrial in that regard. So the fact that we built monuments here on the planet Earth in sync with the heavens is showing our outformational doctrine at play. Do you understand? And that was to keep us in sync with natural nature and the true stars, or Kakabat, they say in Uzbek language, who are our etheric ancestors. So we happen to be the terrestrial representation of that. And Nabab, Yaanuwn, as they refer to him as, comes always at the end of the cycle where the 24,000 year story must be renewed. So you had different combinations of that, and I say in previous classes. Again, to have a bit more detail, so if you do want more information, check that out. We're going to get into the detail of what we were speaking about last week for part 2 today. It's got a few things to get through. Let's get back to where we were last week into this week. Okay. Any questions, by the way, just while we get situated?
There are currently no questions.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Okay. So last week, as I say, in the really getting into the science of relationships, we were explaining to you about the fact that you were taught that you were men and women, but in actuality, when we looked at the safaf or the hieroglyphic symbols for men and for women, they had the same characteristics as the safaf or hieroglyphics for mummies. You understand? And of six ether forces or Zupu, representing death, decay, destruction in that regard, and the fact that an aspect of yourself was considered to be dead. You understand? So that the zabas or the lock within the symbol was shown. So let's go back for those who wasn't here last week. Yeah, this symbol here, known as the zabas, Z-A-B-A-S. Yeah, a lock was showing that it was in place and obviously cut us off from our mental connection, do you understand, linked to our one of our souls, understood? And you can see there, as I say, in the word man and in the word woman, you understand? So zazaz and zazatat here, that lock was in place that's cutting us off, as opposed to zupu, as opposed to nupu, excuse me, where we see the open symbol, you understand, of or what they call the nun symbol, as in the word noon, N-O-O-N, noon. So this nun bowl shows that connection, outformational connection to the heavens. I think we showed you a symbol here, of these three nun bowls with the symbol here, again, the hieroglyph. I'm saying hieroglyph because the word is safaf, and saying if we can, safaf would be what they're saying hieroglyph. I don't know what it is, but the word is safaf or safafat, plural. So here you see the outformational information says above the skies. We explained to you, obviously, here we see the tet symbol, which represents the blood in the human body, but also the little people, the sands people, females 4 foot 5 inches in height, males 5 foot 4 inches in height. So the symbol here of the Ankh, which the upper part represents the womb and the downward part represents the phallus. The key to life, some say, so your children, because it produces children. Children are you. Do you like what you see? So your everlasting life, at least physically, is through your progeny, is through your seed. We see here the symbol for water, horizontal lines here. There's an upside bottom. There's M's, looks like, and that's horizontal, naturally occurring water. We see it in the horizontal context. If it was vertical, same sort of symbol there, then it would be man-made water, like a reservoir, or some lakes are man-made in that context. When you're doing hydro dams and things of that nature. And this is a symbol for Earth. So here in this context, this triad symbol, we were going in detail and explaining that for you to describe who are we in that context. Who are we really? So we're not men and women. You're saying that's a state, obviously, that we find ourselves in, understood, or in the personage of, from a genetic context, but it's not our, for lack of a better word, divine origin or ultimate origin, the source from whence we came. And this is shown in the very symbols, as I say, in the comparison of the symbols. And I think we showed you before, like if you take that, which is a Z, and you turn it 90 degrees, 90 degrees to the right, so you turn the lock 90 degrees, then the open position gives us that nun bowl, so an uninterrupted connection to the cosmos, and more importantly to our suns, which we are the terrestrial representation of. And we talked that last week about the word reason. So ours is our reasoning ability. The Dravidians are thinkers. The Caucasians are imitators. So our reasoning ability makes us, obviously, you see in the word ray, which they use for the sun, as in sun ray or raye. And as I say, you see, we are sons of ray, or sons and daughters of reason. Reasoning that ability. So we have that connection to the sun, which are, or sons, which are the true Nathar or deities to us. Understood? And all other races say, whether they want to accept it or not, because of wrong racism and poor education, all other races come from us. We are the mothers and fathers of all races here on the planet Earth today. So the heavens, the nun bowls, representing, the primordial ocean, which in the world of things versus the world of some things, that makes up what we refer to as existence. And so they can represent many, many things, but space, matter, and time is particularly important. Now, in the context of what we consider to be relationships or mating between male and female, I remember talking about the science of relationships, not the art of relationships, two different things. So we were explaining to you about the importance of our origin and the rules that we came from the world of things, yeah, versus some things, yeah. But the rules of things and the rules of existence are in three stages: being, yeah, becoming, and became. Yeah, you see, being, becoming, became. So we're growing into something, but obviously had an origin. We're growing into something, but we came from nothing or no thing. Yeah, the world of things, things that what they classify as subatomic, or the world of energy, until we become something where we they cross over that threshold into what they call matter. You understand? Or energy matter, before we get crossover, the hydrogen is the threshold and become matter energy. You understand? So energy is where it starts from, and that's birthed from, let's say, a feminine origin. Understood? So before we have energy, we have something referred to as basic energy. And basic energy, which is where energy derives itself from. So motion out of stillness. Understood? We don't. The concept of understanding basic energy is difficult because it doesn't impart any motion, nor does it impart any force. Understood? Which are things associated with energy. So energy itself has a birth. Yes, in female origin, and which is why, for example, these physical particles moving in darkness, being referred to as light, are restricted to 186,272 miles per second in space. Yes, because nothing, that was going to use word something there, but nothing is controlling, you understand? Yeah. The speed of how those particles move. Otherwise, they would move at an infinite speed, depending on the amount of force imparted when the particle first started to move. You understand? So, in this context, so we know that as dark energy and dark matter. Understood? Dark energy is more prevalent. 76% of the existence is dark energy, and 24% is dark matter, making up 90%. The remaining 10% is what is considered to be the visible universe. Understood? So we were teaching about your origin in the world of things, where we started from, and then much, much later down the line, we have manifested, you understand, into males and females. Understood? Men and women, as they classify as. But that depiction of it, as you see clearly in the hieroglyphs, shows us really under the spell or locked into this form because of, as I say, bad information. Our true mind, or our true link to the mental reservoir, has been cut off. And the spell that we touched upon last week has caused us to live in the image and after the likeness of other than self. When we say other than self, other than our proper design, by way of which our ancestors intended us to be. Do you understand? Yeah. So, which is, as I say, I don't know if self stands for this, but solar extraterrestrial life form wouldn't be far off from who we are when we're talking about self. So, in that context, we are suns manifested here on the planet Earth, understood, who burn black, and that's just one of our souls. So we're going to get into now, as I say, the relationship, or continue, as I say, the relationship aspect, the science of it, as opposed to the art, and really understand who we are as females and males. Any questions before I get back into this part that we finished upon this point last week? All right, Nabab, are you there?
I have no idea why my space bar isn't working. Anyway, somebody was asking about the videos that are online, and they're trying to catch up with the classes. and we're just wondering when there are going to be some updated videos.
Parts. Where we at? I think part 6, 7. This is 8, isn't it? So part 6, 7, and I think Science of Sound Part 2 are still to be uploaded. Will be done so in the next week. Yeah. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, understood. Yeah, we'll do that on, as I say, in the next week. You can see them, being unedited raw version, on our Facebook page, All Eyes on Egypt, Midlands and the North. If you search on that, last week's class will show on Facebook if you are on Facebook, but on YouTube, where we edit those classes, I say in the next week, those should be on there. Okay, so we can see here, we finished on this last week. The fact that we were being referred to as supreme beings. Yeah, and as I say, remember we talked about those rules of existence and the rules of things. You understand? Is of are and are of is. You understand? The fact that things are the purpose of existence, and existence is the purpose of things. Understood? So there's a correlation there and a pattern, let's say, that passes through or makes up this jigsaw puzzle. So supreme beings is what the master teacher is describing who we are, you understand? Not what we have become, which is something slightly different. Now, so it says here on 50, this you know you exist. So 49, do not worship what other races call divine, call supreme beings, or call your creator without confirmation. Yeah, so belief is an alien concept, and has been an alien concept to our ancient ancestors, the Nefaru. We deal with confirmation. Yeah, facts is the new spirituality for us in this renewed age. 50, this you know that you exist. 51, this you realize that you're real. 52, this you must accept. You are a something or a sum of a thing. 53, this you know, you were born of a mother's raham womb. 54, this you know, you're reading this right now, and with that you encompass time, space, and material existence. So it's describing, in this context, our awareness. Understood? Now we have become something, but we grew from nothing. Understand? Or no thing, number thing, not nothing as non-existence. That they describe it as just things that don't have a weight by modern day instrumentation. So to make it simple for people, describe it as energy, or energy matter is another way it can be classified as. And this was, again, just to show you in this particular part they're all expanding. Again, all things came into existence with you. 70, well, let's go back. So 74, by being there, which to you is here, and you become here to them by you being there. 75, nothing would exist if you did not exist. 76, that is to you. 77, all things came into existence with you, even you. 78, so you're the supreme being, Pa Pa'ut, the all, obviously, and they're within all. And that's the fact that your awareness, you are the center of your universe. And as it's saying that everything came into existence when you were at least born, in that context, or slightly before then, when your consciousness was switched on. Understood? So it's about 6 months to us as Negroids anyway, when we're in the womb at 6 months, our consciousness is switched on, for lack of a better word, at the 6 month point in the growth process in the womb. Doesn't mean we didn't exist before then, but that conscious connection is established at that point. Now, So at that point, you are the center of your universe, and say it's all about you to you. Yeah, and so this is the point being made here, that awareness, and until things come into your knowledge, they don't exist to you in your universe, even though they exist. You understand? So until somebody, and this is where the failings of, I suppose, their religions come in, until you know about God, God did not exist to you. Do you understand? And in their religious monotheistic concept, or that terminology, in terms of when it came in. You understand? So it's not an absolute title in that regard. It's not existed throughout all time. It started when somebody else created that terminology in their mind and built out that concept in their mind. It's something they were taught, it's something they created. You understand? In that context, or made by copying that culture from others. You understand? As we see, the Bible is a copy from ancient Sumerian tablets, for example. Same stories, just different names, titles, etc. With a helping hand of ancient Egypt in there as well. Stories that they've copied, titles that they've made up to cause confusion. But that's the nature of the people that created that. Myth, you understand? Lies. You know what I say? That's what they say in their own book. So read John chapter 8:44. That's what their Jesus says about their people, not what I am saying about them. Although history records the evidence of the nature of how they have acted since the time they've been on the planet. Now, as I say, all of that doesn't exist until it comes into your world, you understand, or universe. But yeah, it may have existed before then, you understand? So this is what this is, but that makes you a supreme being in that context. Or what makes us supreme is our connection to the very origin as a part of things, you understand? And part and whole, at least for us, can be one and the same thing. Now, we put this on as a last slide to show that, I think in the last class, just to show, before we got in, we were delving into the Holy Tablets, or about to, and it's different titles used. The Holy Tablets was written, or released, I should say, in 1996 in the public domain. And as I say, it has older titles. It was the bridge between religion and reality, as we were removing the various aspects of the spell, the methodology, you understand, to restore back our mind so that it was aligned back with our own ancient ancestors again, not us living in, playing second-class citizens in other people's religions, not having any knowledge or awareness of our own culture, but having that soul meant that we were seeking or looking for something, and oftentimes we were plugging into the wrong sources of information that had nothing to do with our natural design, had nothing to do with our ancestors, but people were taking advantage of our emotional energy and spiritual ignorance in that regard. So the master teacher designed a methodology to remove the spell that was cast on our people, primarily by way of the Celtic clans, understood, and their religion known as Wicca. The Wicca religions today, which do religions today, are a watered down version of that, which I say are arguably some of the most popular religions on the planet today. So this walks us through various stages, and the Holy Tablets, which will be updated when a master teacher is free, needs a further update, is from the time that based on the time that we were at, obviously was learning about the Sumerian deities, Inki, Enlil, so on and so forth, and then how that then links back into ancient Egypt. So when you're dealing with these terms like God, Lord, etc., the reality is that these are simply titles like sergeant, colonel, corporal, you understand? In a hierarchy, it doesn't give you the name of the individual sitting in the seat. So this was describing that removal, and let's say, Holy Tablets was bridged between religion and reality and removing the spell from us by giving certain stories or ancient stories that they've been recorded from the different perspectives of who's talking. Do you understand? So if it come from a perspective of the character named Inky, the story is going to be told one way. If it comes from the character Enlil, it's going to be told another way. And understanding who's talking, the context, the cultural context, religious context, what's taken place, etc., aids understanding than by simply saying, well, I believe in this or I believe in that, with no detail given to us, just expecting us to adopt it without questioning. Okay, any questions?
Yes, there's a question from Patsy, and Patsy says, can you explain this more simply? And then goes on to say, what is a man and what is a woman? And then goes on to clarify the question, basically saying, are you saying we are actually one gender?
No, I didn't touch it on gender yet. What I'm saying is from the use of the words, how we use them, that hieroglyph is showing a state, of imperfection for us, a closed state there. And as I was saying, that's a dead state, for us. So it's a lower state, and maybe when I get into the thing, Holy Tablets make it even clearer. So there's a divine hierarchy, of terminology. And the point I'm making is not that we're one gender, it's the point that the terminology of man, you understand, and the terminology of woman are lower states of our existence. So we've been fooled into thinking that's the sum of our parts, where, as I say, we are more expansive than that. That is us in a dead state. That's what I'm describing there. So here, by this symbol here, 6 ether as a force, which is opposite to 9 ether. So you can see the 2 there represented. 9 in death is 6 ether. And this is dealing with energies, for lack of a better word. So 9 ether is all existing gases, all energy existing anywhere represents 9 ether. Understood? And we see that it also is talking about absolute natural nature. Yes. Whereas when you're dealing with 6 is 9 ether in death. You understand? Or as it's described, partial destruction of original creation. So there is a change there where, as I say, it is devoid or missing something there. And that, as I say, symbol of death has a lock against it. So it's not receiving all of the energy possible or available, or at least able to process it. It's only part, and it's inverted or opposite to what 9 is. Positive, life, living. You see the symbol here of the symbol there, ulaf, which is the same symbol as the Negroid's hair texture, is inverted in the hieroglyph in the saying or Safaf for Zupu as the opposite, representing death, decay, and destruction. So we were simply just making the point that, the lock is in the 6 ether symbol. It is not in the 9 ether symbol. So therefore, the same way 6 is part of 9, but it's got a missing element. Well, as a man and woman, you are incomplete. You are dead in this state with a missing element, and that missing element is that mental connection. Which you understood? Which we're going to read about in a second, relates to what we are calling our soul, that mental connection. Because it all starts with the mind first. Any other questions?
Yes, Patsy has a hand raised. Patsy, your hand is raised. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to allow you to talk. So if you have a question, The hand has now disappeared. So I am assuming that you no longer have a question. And going on from that, there are no further questions.
Okay, thanks, Patsy. So we're going to go into Living Soul a little bit. We have read this before, but people may not have been on the call, so we'll go back over it in the context of this. We'll talk about gender. If we don't get to it today, it'll be next week. So that may be clarify. And I say we did touch on this last week to say there is a slight contradiction, because when you talk about energy, so when you talk about us as spiritual beings or etheric beings, there's no more gender discussion. You understand? Because gender or genes relate to chromosomes, or what they're calling chromosomes. So XX for female, X and Y for a male. But when we step into the spiritual and we're dealing with energy, there's no more gender discussion. But obviously, so it can appear like a contradiction, but there are permutations within those energies which have led to gender, understood? And we can see that in what is referred to as duality. Yeah, and so in order to grow things or create things, you need duality. Understand? And so we're going to talk about that. But that duality is shown in the context of the triad aspect of what we're going to talk about a little bit today. So just keep that in mind. We'll make it clearer, but question further if it's not clear. It's not a problem. So Living Soul, so chapter 7, tablet 1, the Living Soul in the Holy Tablets. As I say, it's the older terminology. As I say, we're moving from the sort of Sumerian to the walking back, all roads back to ancient Egypt. Yeah, so just be mindful of that when you're hearing some of the terminology. Don't get caught up on this, because it's, as I say, 1996. So well over, what's 1996 now? So well over 20 years. 20 years old, yeah, coming up to 30 years old. Now, so begin all prayers and thinking by using the term Papa, or to use modern day, updated terminology. Tablet 1, Living Soul. And it says, Lo, I'm going to replace Anu with Reye just for simplicity. Yeah. Lo, Reye, the Supreme, the Most High, the highest of the Nathar, who praised the father of Inki and Mother Ninti. 2, it was he who made the makers and taught them all, who created the creators, and is he who fashioned the fashioners. 3, he is the one who originated the originators, 4, the builder of the built things before the first and after the last. 5, once you are out of love and compassion for yourself, then and only then can you overstand the physical world in which you reside. So here, very interesting point, you understand, about selflessness. You understand? I think Muhammad Ali said, service to others is the room you pay for your rent here on earth. So, it's the service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. You understand? And it's describing selflessness. You understand? And as we were expressing in the previous class about the divine love being emitted from the sun, or our sun, 93 million miles away, and other suns as our the true deity for us, or the Nathar, yes, which does its job selflessly. Do you understand? Without a lot of thanks. The modern world today does not really even acknowledge the sun as an intelligent, thinking, feeling being, intelligent being. Overstood. And so we recognize that, as I say, us in Wu-Sabat, or applying that science of Wu-Sabat, the science of the Negroid that helps them to unify mentally, and that unification would then follow physically by way of its application. For us, perfection is to achieve, as I say, is when intention and action matches. Understood? And as we get higher in this life, you can see that, moreover, you find yourself in service to others. This is where we truly are able to elevate. You think about somebody like the master teacher, having written over 1,000 books since 1963, has been continually been in service to his people. That much output, many classes, many lectures, etc. But what does it get you for our to stand up for our people? Well, you get assassinated, you get imprisoned, you can be character assassinated. You understand? And then we leave our people out there and hang them to dry. You understand? As say, we see in their many religious stories that they've given, but the reality story for us is that, look at the life of the Marcus Garveys, the Honourable Elijah Muhammad's, the Noble Drew and others, and many others, male and female, who have put their life on the line. How has it ended? Yeah, so service to others is really where one can, spiritually develop. And I see a lot of people, they may chant every day and do a lot of spiritual practices, etc., which is, let's be honest, is necessary as a form of spiritual aerobics. But if you're not in service to others, when you look at out there in your environment, and you look up in space, you're seeing these higher beings, higher entities like the planet, understood, the sun. They're in service to others. They can't just go and do what they feel like when they want to, etc. They have a strong sense of duty and are part of the system, that supports existence and obviously creation or growth within that. Now, 5, once you are out of love and compassion for yourself, then and only then can you overstand the physical world in which you reside in. 6, and you will perceive what you think to be your 5 senses. 7, but in reality, when did you lay in the laboratory of Shimti? 8, time had gone by, there was your barafari gland removed from you. 9, this maimed you and cut you off from random access to the divine. 10, originally you had what was called Nathir Tar 10, or they would say Nathar Patar 10 in tones. 11, the 7 senses that you could activate, 7 higher senses. 12, you could ascend even higher until you ascend back into divinity, but you are still trapped by the 1 sense touch, which is multiplied by deception into 5. Understand? And it goes on to explain it. So that all of these senses are all versions of touch. You understand? They're all versions of touch, really, which is perception. 14. So for to see light touches nerve centers. To smell, particles touch nerve centers. 15, to hear, sound waves touch nerve centers. 16, and to feel, you reach and touch things. 17, which activates nerve centers, your nerve centers. 18, they multiply this 1 sense, the sense to really know, to see, to hear, taste, smell, and feel. 20, yes, so all of those are the sense of touch. That's what it's saying. The 5 is the illusion. It's really 1. Yeah. So here then it talks about our higher senses. 17, to activate your nerve centers. 18, they multiply this 1 sense and the sense to really know, to see, to hear, taste, smell, and feel. 20, the removal of the barafari gland removed the 4 higher senses, which were 21, telepathy, 22, psychometry, 23, clairvoyance, and 24 and intuition. 25, the senses are necessary for your random access throughout the boundless universes. 26, and they have trapped you in a state of cause and effect. So remember, when we look back at that hieroglyphic that we were showing earlier and related to the question posed, we can see that, as I say, we're locked off or cut off, yes, by way of the Zabas lock in the symbol of the male and female. Yes, we're not operating at full mental capacity, understood, in terms of using the whole or all of our abilities. So we've been maimed, or the barafari gland, which was previously in the hippocampus area of the brain, was removed. So the nerve endings are there, but not the additional endocrinal gland that was there as part of our system. So some talk about the number 7. Yes, but that's because they only have 7 glands. We had 9 in the sand, 2 that exist outside of the body. For those who know, the school of Ah-I-U, in the sand. Now, the reality is, so those 4 higher senses, telepathy, obviously, the ability to read somebody else's thoughts, psychometry, which is object reading, so you touch an object and you're able to analyze the energy of people who have interacted with that object. Clairvoyance is being able to see interdimensionally, so see in another location that you're not presently at. And then intuition is quick perception of truth. So these are 4 higher senses linked to the Barafri gland, and almost importantly as well, is that the Barafri gland, as with other of our glands, secreted hormones into our bloodstream that initiate certain chemical process within the human body. The Barafri gland also secreted what some refer to as liquid gold or monatomic elements within our bloodstream, as they did with the Nathar, which gave, as I say, not just access to our higher senses, but enabled, as I say, our DNA strands to remove junk DNA within the human body, and then enhance the DNA strands so they would convey or be able to pass information through at a rate 10,000 times more potent than it is by today's standards without the Barafri gland. So something, or that liquid gold, has to be restored back in the human body to aid our transformation. And as I say, secretion of monatomic elements in the bloodstream was a natural thing that the Natharu had in their bloodstream, and obviously us as their children at one time had in ours, but it was removed. Now, in the context of this is why, as we spoke earlier, certain orders or European orders, like the order of the white and red rose, have been seeking out this liquid gold. And say this is why they used to dig up the bones of mummies or our ancestors, for example, crush those bones and then drink it to try and find this liquid gold, as they say, our monatomic elements. So known as many names, the Philosopher's Stone, different names, etc. So just an addendum, not necessarily fully what we're talking about today. But, sorry, any questions?
Yes. A question from Patsy. She says, I got interrupted hearing all the reply, but what I heard and I understand in effect, we rise to one gender via being spiritual and in the mental. Are we no longer just male or female?
No, there's no gender discussion if you don't have genes. There's no, when we elevate to the spiritual, there's no gender discussion. There isn't such a thing of gender. Gender relates then to duality, understood? So as I say, you can only have male and female as we understand it, is related to genetics, you understand? So when we are going to be talking about it in the context, in the energy perspective, but it's describing characteristics of energy, which, as I say, by the time we get down to the physical, you would associate with male, or by the time we get down to the physical, you would associate with female. So in another way of saying it, to make it clearer, you could say male, for example, is a pushing energy, versus a female energy, which is a pulling energy. These, as I say, push and pull can sometimes be described in certain contexts as male versus female. But in the context of energy, it's push and pull. But you can still describe it in an energy context as male or female, but it's not related to gender. Understand? It's related to the energy characteristics of, the energy characteristics. Yeah, in that regard. But as we step through the various different stages, you understand, that energy may support then what becomes a male and what becomes a female in that form of the manifestation of that duality principle. Understood? Yeah. So it's not that become one gender. Gender relates to genes. You understand? That's what I said. That the contradiction is there is because you're using the term male, but male relates to genes. So how are you talking about it in an energy context? Which is why we was explaining earlier, some of that energy may have certain characteristics that eventually, as it slows down in vibration, it supported the or contributed to the development of the male in the physical. But as I say, when we step out of our physical body, i.e. the genes that make us up today, no more gender discussion. We're talking about the soul in that context. And so not as male and female as you understand them to be genes, X and Y chromosomes and double X chromosomes, or XYX chromosomes, and these characteristics. Understood? Now, so 25 senses are necessary for random access throughout the boundless universe. So you can see that when we're fully optimized, for lack of a better word, or Nupu, you understand, and operating as the children of Nupu, fully restored, then we have random access. Understand? Our mind is restored, and that connection is restored. It's not cut off or limited in that context. So 26, they have trapped you in the state of cause and effect. 27, to and fro, up and down, good and bad in this world, of cause and effect, the world of light. 28, you were made human, given the lesser knowledge which controls you. So you see here, well, if you were made human, then what were you before? Yeah, if you were made human, because you make things from things already here. Create is new, or growth from things that are new. So made human. Yeah? So given the lesser knowledge which controls you. Yeah? As we said, information or bad information keeps you in a certain type of formation. Yeah? So what we learn, or what we take in, shapes our being, physically shapes our being, has a physical effect on not only your physical structure, but also what you think and perceive about yourself. And so as a person thinketh, so it is. Yeah. So this is how powerful mentally that we are. 30, their knowledge being complete has made their thoughts. 28, you were made human given the lesser knowledge which controls you. 29, when things are being thoroughly investigated, the knowledge becomes complete. So, as I say, no more belief and faith. Yeah, the new spirituality, yeah, in our renewed story is factual information, facts. Yeah, which we're seeking. Confirmation is what we're seeking. Yeah, through a 9-step process. 30, their knowledge being complete has made their thoughts sincere. Yeah, so this is one of the things here which we're striving for perfection, is that, as I say, intention and action match, yeah, which leads to or expresses sincerity. 31, their hearts being rectified and their self is then cultivated. 32, with their self being cultivated, their families were regulated. 33, their states were rightly governed. 34, the whole kingdom was made tranquil and happy. 35, it is necessary for you to overstand the spiritual realm and the world of darkness. Yeah, this is what we're taking you into, isn't it? The cause and effect, the world of things. Yeah. 36, in which you would be using all your 7 senses. You understand? Now, in fact, if you count them up to 4 and you add their so-called 5, you understand, we get to 9 senses, understand, as we step back through. So 7 is a particular science, as I say, because we deal with Sumerian doctrine. We step back into further now in our story, then we get to 9. Now, it says in which you'll be using all your senses. So in the spiritual realm, rather than just, as I say, taking it in through senses that are located and separated to your eyes to a certain function, obviously your tongue, another function, nose, another function, your whole being becomes a sense. Your whole being becomes a sense. This is what it's talking about. So, in which you'll be using all your 7 senses, thereby rendering you alahum, or in this, it's to upgrade at an etheric being, yeah? So 38, then even higher onto your 9 senses, we're just talking about that, yeah? Rendering you an etheric being, understood? Yeah, so I suppose, in fact, let's split that. So this would render you a god or a deity incarnate, and then, you understand, in the physical, understood, and then onto your higher senses, render you an etheric being. So fully restored connection in that regard. 40, which is the true world of causes. 41, the things of the world and its inhabitants are subject to change. 42, they are a combination of elements that existed before. Yeah, so the world of things that we're talking about here. 43, and all living creatures are what their past actions made them. 44, for the law of cause and effect is uniform and without exception. Yeah, so listen. Yeah, so here we see cause and effect in relation to the physical world here, in which relating to, and is uniform. So uniform, remember, is one form. Yeah, uniform, cause and effect, and without exception. So we live, as I say, in the rules of, or in nature's rules, I should say, is in a reactionary state. Do you understand? But when we talk about supreme beings obviously are able then to, they are subject to the environment, but also they existed before, yeah, cause and effect came in. So the cause that caused cause and effect, you understand, would be where the supreme beings reside, which have been falsely, as I say, called God, Allah, and all these different terminologies, which are themselves subject to the rules of nature. Do you understand? That's why I say their Father, in Matthew chapter 6:9, art in heaven. So therefore was subject to the rules of the environment. You understand? He created, or they say that Gabriel came down and, you know, made through Mary, and they produced a male child named Jesus. You understand? Now, that birth was subject to the laws of the environment, because she went through 9 months, in the story at least, 9 months of birth. So they were subject. This is the divine. In one place you claim that, you know, Adam sprung out of the ground without a mother and father. Then in another place, Jesus, who's supposed to be the Son of God, was subject to the rules of the environment. You understand what I'm saying? So their God is within the environment, not different. It's subject to cause and effect. Understood? Now, if they wasn't, then why doesn't their God click their fingers and make everything all positive and good, according to what they teach and the powers that they say their God has? You understand? If it was predestined for Jesus, for example, in their story, to die at the age of whatever it was, 33 on the cross, you understand? Then why would they have to have worried about running from Herod? You understand? And then making their way to, of all places, to Egypt, Africa, which is where their God seemed to be sending all of their prophets. If they wasn't subject, you understand, to those rules, or part of the rules, you understand? You could just change Herod's mind or stopped whatever. So they're always making excuses for why their deity must comply with the forces of nature, with the rules, of nature. Making excuses, you understand? Because they don't understand that actually what they're referring to as God is nature. As I say, a set of reactionary rules that take place where there's no, conscious judgment in there. The rules are designed to do what is best for the environment. You understand? And the rules are not for altering in that regard. Now, so law of cause and effect is uniform and without exception. Yes, I mean, it applies everywhere in all places in that context of the physical. Now, 45. The 7 descending planes being 46, Khnum, the potter, the Ab, heart of Ra'eh, 47, who is the Most High of the abode called Lahut. And it's an old term. So you have Nasut, which is the world of human beings. You have Malakut, which they describe as the world of angelic beings, which is really so one is you talk about the world of Nasut or human beings. Well, that's the planet. Understood? Yeah, or us within the planet. The world of Malakut, which they describe as angelic beings, understood, is angelic beings which represent suns. Yeah, so that would be the world of Malakut, yeah, in space, understood. And then you've got this world Lahut, which is saying the Most High resides, and Lahut is a particular star constellation, in fact. However, in this context, these three different states, then you would say, well, that is the world of things. Yes, because the suns are born out of the world of things to become some things and help shape the the very universes, etc., that we are residing in, the many of them, and so not just one. So in that goes. So some, you remember, in the old school, the more simple teaching described it as that tri-principle of gas, liquid, and solid. You understand? So say their Most High resides in what? The gaseous state, understood? The angels in the form of liquid, and man is a solid in that regard. So just it's talking about three different states, or a triad of existence in that context. Obviously, with the steam being the highest vibrational or higher form of vibrational energy than being solid, for example, in that regard. Now, it says, from which the name El Elo, the source, which is appointed by El Kalum, the all, from which all originated. The source of divine reality, the spark of life. Understood? So you go physical plane, plane of force, spiritual plane, then mental plane, yes, and then the plane of divine truth, then above divine truth and the plane of divine reality, because truth also can be from a perspective. So something can be true according to X. Do you understand? So I don't know. If you said Jesus is the Son of God, for example, according to the Bible, well, it may be true according to the book. Understood? Within that framework, but it's not a reality outside of that book. Do you understand? So you have truth, and then you can have reality. So there's two separate things. The truth can be from a perspective, maybe true within a certain environment, but it's not necessarily reality outside of that environment. You understand? So another example of that would be a person, if you looked at yourself in the mirror, for example, and looked at your human body, yes, that's not really the real you, because at a certain point when you get old and die, it's going to change form, and as we touched on last time, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, the bacteria is going to return back to the earth where it came from. So that's an illusion. You're not looking really of what it is, in a sense. You're looking at what it appears to be, in a sense, a conglomeration of bacteria which is attracted around the salt. A complex system, of course, but that's not really what it is. It's going to change. Understand? So it's just showing that there's two different states, and in the context of this verse here, is showing that divine reality is where this spark, of life is sourced, understand, or exists there. Now, 50. Life is a time you spend in your khat or khatat body on Earth or on other planets. 51. From the moment of conception, between the sperm and the ovum, there is life and light. Yeah. So, interesting enough, point we're just sort of making here is that, so this is obviously life for us, and this is the form that we're in. And, you know, again, you think about it, in this context at least, there's a separation in these two life forms between what is considered to be female and male in this context applied to these life forms. Now, one of the things that was very good about the Holy Tablets in changing our mental perception was the Natharu, particularly from chapter 1, where it's describing who we are as human beings. It described us in the context of single-cell amoebas, protozoas, and talking about what this was speaking about us, your very origin. You understand? So when we're looking at single-cell, when we're looking at ourselves, for example, we've got this perception of the finished product, or you might see ourselves at our earliest point as a baby, but you wouldn't look, for example, at this and think to yourself, oh, that was me, or that's us at that point. You understand? And this is, again, maybe there's a truth of that, but then there's the reality that our starting point, our origin in the physical is what we're seeing here. So the question might be, I'm just showing the screen there, you know, why is this not sacred or holy? Yeah, so why aren't we walking around wearing sperm or ovums around our neck, or a combination of the two, as holy? Because that's where we came from physically, but yet people have got crosses around their neck. They got other images around their neck. Well, a cross is what? A symbol of death. Yeah, and a symbol of the mentally dead. Yeah, where people who are living go. Yeah, mentally dead, ghostational forces. So you got to ask yourself, well, why is this not sacred? Understand? Yes, you can see the symbol when we step back to ancient Egypt. You see the symbol of the Ankh or Anach, understood there with the womb and the downward phallus, the delivery and laboratory mechanism that deposits and houses and grows us. Understand? But this is our origin. Understand? So it's that changing of perception, as I say, that brings us into infuse us with the reality of who we are, and obviously study, knowledge, etc., helps us to accept that. You understand? As a reality, and not the fake aspects of we are. So this is our origin, as this, you know, sort of sperm and ovum is what it's touching upon in there. So from the moment of conception, between the sperm and the ovum, there is life and light. 52, divine or otherwise, prior to fertilization. 53, there was a 3-month preparation inside the female and the male in darkness. 54, this is actually the first 3 months of the life of the human being. So before conception, we have inception, which takes place in the darkness. So the sperm, the ovum, and they're coming together is a result of, as I say, or is the cause that cause and effect. Do you understand? So sperm may be cause, and say the ovum is effect, but the cause that cause and effect is that existed in the mental prior, understood, to that. So prior to that, we've got these 3 months where this event is being prepared. You understand? Where the two are coming together, and read more about that in a second when we go through soulmates. Now, this is actually the first 3 months of life of a human being. 55. Once the egg is fertilized by the male sperm, the child, 56, the child is already in the 4th month of life. 57. So a woman really carries a child for 12 months and not the 9 months as you have been falsely led to believe. 59, the source of divine truth, the guardians or the Natharu. 60, the source of the plane, the mental plane. So divine truth feeds the mental. 61, the plane of Achach, spirit. And 62, and the Ba'ah, soul, where thoughts are formed. Yeah, so so one basically feeds the other in terms of that energy transfer. You understand? Obviously, with the physical being the lowest level of vibration. 63, the source of the spiritual plane. 64, where emotions are manifested. 65, the source of the plane of force, where the force is between voluntary and involuntary actions with life substance is manifested. You understand? So not only is one feeding the other, it's also describing the state which births, you understand? So it's responsible for birthing what's being described in the state, in the next state. Yeah, so it's origin and birth. Obviously, it's all connected in a logical descending style sequence. Yeah, but one is giving birth to the other, and when it births it, that's when you can see it. You understand? It's not always that you can see the previous plane. You're seeing the result in the next plane, obviously being informed by the previous plane. Now, 67, the source of the material plane, the governor of the carnal plane, carnal desire, material, not spiritual, like where Ra'yeh, who is also the Most High, 69, to rule over the heavens and the planet Earth, who is called Yahor or Jahav by the Mizraimites, or those who of Ham, Kemet, Egypt. 71, this became Yahweh from Yah, agreeable, and Way, disagreeable. 72, he being the light of the heavens and the earth by those who worship the sun. 73, this was placed in the heart of the Nathar, the source, who is also called the Most High or Ra'yeh. You understand? 74, the plane of force is a plane about which the human mind cannot conceive the knowledge concerning it. You understand? So that's so this is the plane that controls the weather, describes nutrition in food. You understand? So basically the elemental plane. Yeah. So which human beings cannot conceive the knowledge concerning it. You understand? 75, for he, the source, is the all-knowing and the all-wise, the supreme being. 77, he, the source, who you should have no other, the source with him. So again, this is where we get into more religious, descriptive stuff because of its purpose at the time when it was written. Say in your heart, I have faith by way of Ra'yeh as he is. 79, by using all of his names and acknowledging all of his special, let's go to 7 there, 8, all of his special qualities by accepting them in your heart and reciting it with your tongue. 81, by declaring I'll be faithful to Ra'yeh and all of his messengers, or Nathar of Ra'yeh. 82, and all of the scriptures and all of those Rasulat sent forth by Ra'yeh, who is the Most High. 83, for guidance in the final day when all actions will be judged. 84, according to whether they be agreeable or disagreeable. 85, all of this comes from Ra'yeh right up until death. 86, there are two lives, life on earth and life after physical death. 87, death is a door which takes you from one stage in life to the next stage of higher life. 88, if a person was highly spiritual person, 89, their soul will pass at once through to the planes. 90, or even bypass the planes and go into the heavens or other galaxies. 91, from where their soul and ether being originated. 92, with the help of the elder Natharu, the in this case, Ingigi, those who stayed and observed. You understand? 93, the heavenly host or 24 elders who sit around the throne called Shuyuk. 94, you should not weep at natural death. 95, but rejoice and welcome the presence of the Nathar. 96, the Nathar blessed you with old age, blessed you with old age and allows the physical body to rest with the harmful activities that we indulge in every day. 97, old age prepares human beings for their inevitable judgment. 98, so escape not the possibility of becoming elderly. As I say, in that preparation for us becoming in that context, remember, well, not remember because I haven't taught it yet, but in the context, we start off, manifested, or our DNA manifested here, we started off as hermaphrodites and hermaphrodites, and then split into male and female. And actually, when we approach the point of death, we're becoming more neutral gender beings once again, because obviously in a male, his testosterone production starts to deplete as he gets older. You understand? So he's becoming more female, because you're both genders. You understand? Even you have female inside of us, I should say, and as well as male inside of you. But the male is obviously the more prevalent. You understand? Dominant in that context. But you still have aspects of female inside of you, so you're becoming more neutral chemically as you get older. The same way like the female who is producing estrogen, that starts to deplete as she gets older. So you're becoming more neutral as you obviously prepare for this, the doorway to the higher life referred to as death. Now, it says here, for it's 99, for it is honored gift that everyone receives. 100, you may weep for the murdered victims or accidents or illness. 101, and life cut off before old age. 102, you can weep for the pain they felt, but not for the transferred from this world to the next. 103, you cannot take from the all, and you cannot add to the all. 104, the all merely shares and you become. Remember those rules that we talked about? Being, becoming, became. You understand? I'm part of the all is part of me. The all is I am. Understood? So this is what is being described here, our growth, you understand, and manifestation through these rules within existence. 105, this is an important bit here, which you want to pay attention to. 105, the plane of divine reality is the mental spark, the true essence of being. Yeah. 106, the light of life in human beings. 107, a divine spark. 108, a reflected spark from Raya, the most high, the highest. 109, manifesting itself as effect. Light disturbed the supreme balancement of darkness, and he created individualism. 110, or a focal point which manifests there as opposed to here. 111, this spark is in each individual, making them a supreme being, on into beings known as Nathar or Natharu, then on into what? Human beings. 112, onto human being, onto human, onto men, onto mammal, onto beast-like man, beast, onto demon. So when we look here at this spark, which is on this plane of divine reality, a mental spark, you describe it as. So, and if you go on to further, it's projecting down, but where is men, or men including man and woman, you can see is one step. Yeah, mammal, it's only one or couple of steps above beast. Understood? Yeah, so this is how far we have fallen. Yeah, one or two steps above beast. Yeah, because you say, well, we are mammals, or well, females are mammals. But beast like man, beast. Yeah, this is how far beast is a man. Beast like man. These are one steps above these lower vibrational entities here. So we can see how far we've fallen. And again, this describing that we're not men and women. So before we can get into, well, how do relationships work and all that kind of stuff, well, first of all, know who you are. Know who you are first. Do you understand? Because otherwise we're just playing with each other, or we don't know how to optimize each other, or what's the best and optimum environment for us if we've got no clue, we're spiritually ignorant of who we are. You understand? So again, what makes you a supreme being? Okay, well, this is what? This divine spark, understand? Or spark of life. And I'm going to describe what it goes to in a second in the next few verses. Now, it says, as ether beings, rulers of agreeable Nathar, they call Sarafat, who can incarnate on behalf of human beings. 114, the disagreeable Nathar, Garubat can incarnate on behalf of man and the man beast. Yeah, so we've got two different types of etheric beings. You understand? Now, all races, I suppose, have their own religions, you understand, and the way they connect in with the rules limited by their created abilities, understood. And this is why I say you can't choose your religion, because your religion connects you with your physical and your etheric ancestry on into your higher ancestry, as we're describing or learned about more in detail here and previously. So you trying to choose now creates a problem, because you're connecting with a source or forces that were not designed to develop you. You understand? And so this is how they cause confusion and mess things up, because you're connecting certain races or their children with deities that did not create them, deities that did not have anything to do with their development, understood? And therefore the instructions given to evolve and develop that individual, grow the person into their divine self, would then be false and sound negative, and setting the person up to fail, as I say, to be used by discarnate entities at the point of death. Understand? So it is a race's natural nature to be able to direct its energy out towards its ancestors. And the fact that, as I say, the problem has happened is that we've, at the point of death, our energies, being a culmination of a conglomeration of different types of emotional energy, has found itself in various different ether levels, not connected with our ancestry. And in order to correct that, a program is initiated called Raye Ha Hara or Hara Achet. Understand? This is a program which obviously brought by this Nabab Raye Hapta to realign all of these energies back to where they're supposed to be. So our ancestors being trapped on lower planes, needs to be drawn out of that and realigned back to 7, 8, 9 ether fields of energy where they should be residing, and not in these lower aspects which feeds other races and not ours. Understand? So there's a point being made, if we're looking at the in between, that there is a separation there. You understand? So people love to say, oh, they're the same under the skin and all this kind of stuff. Well, maybe from some elements or characteristics are similar, but not the same. Understand? And we do have to understand the differences as we respect it in the context of the animal kingdom. We respect it when it comes to the context of farming, so the agricultural world as they may have it today. When it comes to human beings, because certain people don't want to flag up or highlight their deficiencies, now all of a sudden we don't want to give credit to the who are the supreme beings. Understand? We want to keep everybody at this man and woman level, as I say, which is only a few steps above beast. Yeah, because they don't want to find out that some people on this planet are supreme beings and others are not. Some people are just men and women. And there is a difference. Now, here it gets a little bit more religious, but we'll play through this. So it says 116, in the spirit of Cadman, son of Atum, and his wife Liliv, 117, and Nabab, daughter of Ptah, and his wife Anaph are one being. Yeah, so, excuse me, are one being. So remember, male was birthed out of female in the context of their story. But the reality is that in order for a male or that Cadman or whatever to be male, he would have had to have been born out of a hermaphrodite. You understand? In order to take, a double X chromosome out of him to produce a female in that kind, you'd have to have it from a hermaphrodite or a hermaphrodite. You understand? Or a hermaphrodite. You have more genetic material than the normal human being. You understand? Being the true neutral gender beings in that regard. Understood? So not possible, by the way, in their story where an X and Y gives birth to a double X. It's impossible according to the nature's rules. Now, 118. So thus you Cadman are Nabab and you Nabab are Cadman. So male is female and female is male. Understood? 120. Interesting enough, that verse number. He is also called Adam. So that is saying to you is that the Caucasian, you understand, this is obviously Sumerian, but Nabab, obviously of Ptah, is Egyptian origin, and Cadman, as I say, is these are talking about, this is Dravidian origins here. Dravidian origins here. This is where all this stuff is coming from. Yeah, in the last 50,000 years. Now, he is also called Adam. So he means the Mukasu in the span of 6,000 years. It is on this plane where the mental spark is formed. So pay attention to this. Mental spark is formed. The shell of the spiritual body, Cadman, who is the ruler of Nasor, remember the abode of Shiites, human beings, we talked about it earlier. 123, a spark of what? Divine consciousness. 124, leading to the development of the human soul. Yeah, so remember when we were just sitting back previously in the hereafter doctrine, in the all expanding, you understand? And we're talking to you about that, yeah, that it's all about you to you, yeah, so that consciousness, that awareness, rendering us a supreme being. The mental spark is the starting point of that awareness, and it leads to what? The development of the human soul. Yes, and now check this, because we described earlier when we were talking about the soul, that is a connection, yeah, which can be broken, and it can be when a person's not in control of their decision making, and it can be restored when the person is in control of their decision making. You understand? So the fact that it has a connection to it that can be, for lack of a better word, lost or regained, you understand, is what's being described here. So you get a better understanding of it. It says, being in the image and likeness of the Nathar, or the Most High, glorified and exalted light, as a child of the Nathar. 126. This spark of consciousness. 127. This mental spark that radiates a part of itself down to the planes below it. 128. It projects down to what is called the spiritual plane and forms what you call the soul. Yeah, what you call it. Understand? Yeah, but what is it? It's a mental spark. So we originate from the mental. Understood? We originate from the mental and project a piece of ourselves down. Yeah, from our origins. That's interesting because we're not moving. When we talk about this journey, which you read about last week, of being, becoming, became, understood. Are we moving? We didn't really leave the place where we originated from. We're projecting ourselves down from the source, an aspect of self. Now, what's interesting in terms of that is that, remember, if we're projecting ourselves down, then we're creating a point from the source of where we are, and then the direction of travel to where we're going to. Do you understand? So that growth is then happening between those 2 points, and a driver between those 2 points. Understand? Being created, being, becoming, became. Now, in fact, I'm not going to go through all this because this is the point that's really wanting to make. That basically, when we're talking about us, that we are a thing, you understand, and a supreme being as our starting point, but that we are that mental spark is the origin of us being projected, as I say, in the context of this, downwards, but it's not really down, but it's downward insofar as lower states of vibrational energy. Do you understand? And that aspect of self, as I say, being called the soul. Now, we've shown you this many times before. I didn't put the images up today, but say when you look at a picture of a peacock, for example, any photo, but let's say we look at a picture of a peacock, and if you zoom in to it, a graphical picture of a peacock, you're going to see, this is a bunch of pixels. So from it looks like a peacock to us. When we zoom in now, we see, it's made up of different colored and different hues of squares called pixels. You understand? If you were to zoom in even deeper, same thing you're looking at, same peacock, that would be a series of zeros and ones. You understand? So depending on what perspective one is looking at things, that is how it can appear to be. But its source is, in this context, say, this mental spark, which is driving, say, our development, where we're existing clearly, or on this lowest plane of existence, and as male and female, in the context of this. Now, what else did I really say here? So, 149. So, built on the atoms of the physical plane, it manifests as a mortal. 51, body and spirit. 52, giving birth to living soul. 153, the body, the spirit. 154, the living soul is the successor of the earthly plane. Understand? So, when we remove the physical body at the point of death, remove the body at the when mental us is born and combined in the physical body, you understand, and then we live our life, but then at the point of death, that was correct what I said, but at the point of death, is where we shed the physical and then live as soul. Understand? Live as soul. So a living soul can't live really as soul until the point of death. Understand? So and one is living as soul, but once combined in the soul is combined with the body, and that link to the mental is there if we are complete. Now here you see son of the Nathar, you are born of the will. Remember the will, involuntary and voluntary actions, understood, from the source. So that, again, evidence of the mental decision making, understand, voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary means that the will means that decisions are being made. You understand, in that regard, which is a characteristics or factor of mentality. You understand, linked to the mental. Now, one for a living soul, 158. What is it again? The mental spark, all connected through the mental sparks, all connected through the spiritual umbilical cord, the etheric cord. Now, what is all that to say? So let's look at this diagram here. So we can see here, which I think we previously showed you in the last class, the image of. In fact, let me show it so it's not people are not surmising. We showed you the image of your mental being and the various different ways in which you're connected to the mental reservoir on into, as I say, the spiritual aspect of you, which is your DNA and your RNAs, as one aspect of your spirit, known as the nefas spirit, in that regard, and obviously how your physical brain is a receiving device of thoughts and brain etheric seeds, as one may describe it as, which one draws down from the mental reservoir, which we have a connection to, but obviously limited connection until that Barafari gland is sort of fully restored. Understood? Yeah. So when we move forward back to this diagram to show again that sort of mental connection there, it describes, as I say, a day where we're awake, understood, and the cycles that we go through when sleeping. Remember, sleep is, they call it the sister to death, because we're vibrating there on alpha waves, understood? Yeah. So, and we can see here how the individual mind, is connected to the mental, understood, which then links into the multiverse. And so Outformation coming into this universe in a form of information, and how we link to the mental, and it feeds in our individual mind. You understand? Or what we call in our individual mind. But the ka'a aspect of us is what allows us to draw down this mental energy into our body, is the ka'a. You understand that? The higher spiritual aspect of us, or the higher spirit body of ourselves, in the sand, depicted, as you see there, with two hands raised, in the sand, in this kind of receiving position. And so sort of see the famous stereotypical image of the Egyptians with their hands raised, but you see the palms, you understand, oftentimes are in a horizontal position. They do that dance with their head shaking or whatever, the typical, but you know that the palms are flat but facing up. So then the palms are up, facing up in that way. When us as Sabians, remember, we did or learned Ashutat, and when you perform that prayer, you would have noticed, you understand, when your palms are in that kind of upwards position, or open hand, for example, that you get energy emanating out of the center of one's palm. So when you're speaking, or you're, I suppose, chanting within that prayer system, you understand, you would notice, that when you're in that raised position with your palms up, you're sending energy out. Understood? Whereas this is showing you here the counter position to that is where you're receiving energy. You understand? So when your hands are in that more clasped position, you understand? That's ready to receive something, isn't it? That's the gripping. It's like a grip type position. Understood? So you can see here, just in terms of directional energy, that this is a receiving position. Understand? Now, again, look at the hieroglyphs here. This is the horn-tailed viper. Horned viper. Fa'ay, you understand, is how it's referred to in the language, where the word afaf means, which is from, in the sense of, but from as in born of, is what it's describing here. Yeah, because also the symbol for tefaf natat or tefnot, understand? whose name means moisture. And if we to show our hieroglyphics, I haven't got it on here on the screen at the moment, but this also has the horned viper, or Fa'ay. Understand? F-A, hard A-A-Y, Fa'ay. Yeah, and or Fa'ay. You understand? Yeah, so hard symbol, but it's a symbol of mitochondrial DNA. You understand? So again, the viper, yeah, like a spitting forth, understood, shows a delivery mechanism for that DNA in the context of females, showing that unbroken line, understood. So here, we're of the sons Afaf Raye Ka'a'u, understand, which is the recycled name from the of what they call Africa, from the Arabic word faraka, means to divide and separate. I think it was named after a Roman general, in fact. But in the new cycle information, look how we repurpose it to give it 9 meaning once again. So from the sun's spirit, understand, or from the spirit of the sun. This is what the Africans are, or us today, understand, as the descendants, showing again that the Ka'a is feeding the mental, and the manifestation of that mental projected down into here, into the physical. Well, one of its expressions is the sun, our sons. You understand? And it shows us, say, receiving, obviously here, the sun as the symbol of the source of life here, you understand, which grew these universes that we reside in today, which is similar, as I say, it's the symbol of the source, like a female breast. If you look at a female breast from the top down, understood, you see this symbol here, the nipples in the center, providing what? Sustenance. Yeah, which is what the Natharu means, overseers, you understand, but Natharu are fed from the higher ether beings known as the what? The Riskians. You understand? That word means providers. So the provider is giving birth, understood, to the sustainer. You understand? In this context here, to be able to sustain life. And this is showing here that born of. Yeah, born of. As we read a little bit later, we can see, well, okay, how did this mental projection of a sud, which is projecting down, manifest itself now in our life form today? Because remember, the whole of these parts that we've been teaching here, from all the way down from the book down to part 8, is really only based on almost based on 1 and 2 verses. This is how deep we've had to take it, to really get us to understand, which is about that statement pertaining to the jigsaw puzzle. Which I think is verse 2 or 3 in the book. Understand? Relating to this jigsaw puzzle. Let's just go back and hit that point, just so it's clear for everybody on the call. When I find that, any questions?
Yes, we have a question from Patsy. I'm going to partly paraphrase here, but the question is, great information. However, can it be explained more simply what and who we are? Often people stay at church as it is said so simply who and what they are. I know it's lies and conditioning that we want to break free from, but would be useful if you could give a simplified definition of who and what we are and can become as we develop in right knowledge.
Well, you have to question on what aspects, we've been teaching you, because we explained to you already that you are a thing. In fact, I'll go back to that in one second. Let me just deal with this. So it says truth is unity because, 2, know this truth is unity and falsehood is division. Truth is unity because the pieces of the true jigsaw puzzle fit neatly together as one unit, and falsehood is division because it is just the opposite. So we were showing you about this correlation that happens as we go from point of origin into growing, you understand, and developing into form and system, you understand, what they call creation, then that correlation's still there. So the thing that we were, you understand, is, and what we then grow into still remains, but it's like an echo of that origin. So for example, here it's saying what? That in the beginning were the suns, and the suns were within Fatir al-Fatir, natural nature, and the suns are natural nature. The suns, the true Kakabat stars, are Parnatharu, the overseers who grew absolute natural nature from omniverse all into the universe, the all. So the reality is that the sun up in the sky, do you understand? That correlation still exists in you today because you have a terrestrial sun, which you referred to as what? The solar plexus. Understood? So that growth of the starting of our origin and where we are today, the echoes of that are still here on this plane of existence. There's no separation from that. The separation has come from, as I say, bad information. Outformation and information are linked. Outformation, you understand, creates or informs information. So our outformation ancestors have caused, you understand, or the result of us being here and our shape, what we look like, and characteristics, it still has carried through from the very origin of things. Now, when we talk about simplicity, well, the simplicity was that we are a thing. So that's the simple thing about it. Yeah, this is what we showed you previously. We are a thing. Yeah, but you had to understand that there's a world before the physical called nothing. You understand? When you say nothing, you're saying number thing, or things that don't sum up to something that have a weight. When you say something, you're dealing with hydrogen and the 99 elements, understood, which make up what they're referring to as physical existence. Hydrogen is the first sum, understood? Before hydrogen or before physical existence, you have energy. Yeah, so that was a simplicity to say, okay, to aid one's understanding, you make a separation at hydrogen where that is matter. Yeah, material or physical things, some things, versus energy where that is just the world of things. You understand? Because at least by their measuring tools, it's the world of things where we don't weigh up to something. So our origin is what? In the world of things, which is what's being described here. Yes, because we have to understand existence before what they were calling, for your lack of understanding or our lack of understanding, before the master teacher came along, which was people kept talking about creation. Everything was to do with creation or the creator. You understand? But the reality is, well, in order to create, you have to exist first. And then what's the creator, who they're calling the creator, made from? And where do they exist if they're not human? Yeah, in terms of the context of the understanding of separating oneself from this so-called higher being, or what we've been calling divinity in this context. Yeah, so to break that apart, because it's only true in the context of what they informed you in those badly translated books called the Bible, the Quran, and so on and so forth. Most people, if they don't even believe in a religion, their God concept has come from these monotheistic, incorrect teachings. And if people spoke the original languages of or the languages that say that those books were originally written in, you understand, then they would have a different understanding of what's been shown in English. So the simple thing of who we are, which is not simple insofar as the wording of it is difficult to understand because we're battling against the bad information that we've taught. But what's it saying here? 3. The rules of Sadadat, Shalel, Kawan, and The rules of existence are the rules of what? Being, becoming, became. This triad principle. Yeah, and what's it saying here? The rules of nothing to nothingness to somethingness. So exactly what we've described to you, the simplicity is when the sun appears to go down, look up at the so-called night sky, as they call it, or shadow hour, and look at what you're seeing there. Look at the context of what everything that you can see is sitting within. It's sitting within darkness. Do you understand? The reason why it appears to be light is because our planet is rotating in a certain direction and happens to be facing an energy source called the sun. And when it turns away from it, you understand, we call that shadow or darkness. When it's facing it, we call it what? Daytime. Yes, but it's all set in darkness. That the problem is that they had us focused on the light, which is only a very small part within existence. Understand? So you reflect, or if people on this call are people of Negro or Negroid descent, you reflect the blackness, which is melanin. Melanin is the manifestation or the culmination of all of the colors. Understand? Black light. You want to call it that. You understand? A combination of all the colors. When you separate them, they become colors. When you put them all together, they become a tone of blackness, which represents why we have color versus not having color. You understand? So here is representing this nothingness. Yeah, the cause and effect, where we came from. Yeah, so what's it saying to us? If we are able to fight the programming, not saying that you're not doing that, but I'm saying fight the programming and accept what's being taught or how we're being informed, which is what takes time because we're fighting the programming. Saying the rules of nothingness to somethingness. So that's the journey that we're on. The sum of things. Yeah? So somethingness, yeah, the sum of, or let's say sum of things is the, you can describe the whole of it. You understand? Yeah, the sum of things, but something is things that have a weight. Yeah, they have a weight. So, but because let's describe this. An atom is made of subatomic particles. Understood? So it's made up of smaller things. If you were to look at your hand, for example, under a powerful enough microscope, you will see that it's not really truly solid. It is a conglomeration of atoms being held together by different types of forces, which is why, for example, if somebody was to put a syringe into your hand, it would what? Go straight through. So you're not really truly solid. Yeah, you're not truly solid. You're made up of things which just happen to be close together and give the appearance that they're solid based on the magnification capabilities of your eyes. You understand? So your eyes vibrate on a certain frequency and things vibrate on a certain way, which give the illusion of solidity in the world you're in. You understand? So you don't have to step outside or use more powerful tools to get a look or a view of what the next level looks like, that obviously we're a part of. Now, what are we, or who are we? You are. So the sum of things, you are a what? A thing. That's the simplicity. You are a thing. Mukwanu, a being. You understand? So the ing, which is connected to that thing, excuse me, is showing us at least at a state where we are a thing that is subject to order, because we're growing into form or system. Understood? Yeah, and so that renders us moving in a certain direction referred to as growth. Yeah, it says, now, you of is. So is what? Well, which we're going to read later, but I'll explain it just so it's easier for us to grasp it here. Saying you are you of is. So meaning to say, you are of things. Yeah, we are a thing. So you're of that, you understand? Which is that nothingness, a thing. And then what's saying it? You are. Okay, so you are means that you exist. There you are. So when we say, who are you? Do you understand? Yeah, it's describing, excuse me, what we really are as opposed to what we became when we understood, for example, that we're men and women. Yeah, because men and women is describing an illusionary aspect of ourselves, which we were taught about ourselves and taught a certain way, but it didn't describe all of the other aspects of us or the origin. So this is who we are. You understand? If you're naked, for example, yeah, and you walk out, let's say you're naked, that's you at least, I don't know, in this context that you could describe it, you're most vulnerable. But that's who you are. Do you understand? If you put on, I don't know, a pair of Armani jeans and an Armani jacket and an Armani shirt, do you understand? Are you the Armani shirt? Are you the Armani jeans? Are you the Armani jacket? No, that just happens to be the clothes that you're wearing over your body. So when we talk about in the context of the hereafter doctrine, you understand, where the spell has been broken, now we're getting into the reality, no more symbolism, you understand? This is referred to as what? The master's secrets. Yeah, so we're now getting into the reality that we're talking about. You understand? In the very origin of things. Yeah? The master. Okay, what is the word master? Look at it. We see the word star in there. We see the word ma there, which people use for or call their mother. Yeah, so the mother star or the mother ship, you understand? Yeah, as I say, or the ma star gives birth to what? Mini stars. Hence why we're being referred to as what? Star children. Yeah, the Mars star or the water star or the Mars star, the mother star is giving birth to mini stars. Yeah, we have an organization that helps write these books within our nation. It is called the Administration. Min is a delivery device, or min is amun, depicted as a male with a erect phallus or penis. Do you understand? Standing up. Min is a delivery device for amun. You understand? How we're able to move energies from one point to the next. Understood? So it all connects, all star or cosmology, if you want to use it in that context. So we are a thing. That's a simple context, even though it's not simple, you understand? But it is simple. It's just confusing because of the way you've been taught. So we are a thing, and then that thing placed into order is a being. Yeah, because now, if it was aimless, it would just be a thing and be a part of chaos. Now, because it's within a system and it has purpose, understood? Now it's in order. And it has for lack of a better word, a direction of travel. You understand? And here, what is it saying here? It's saying you of is are, yeah, so we exist. It's saying so the rules of things are different to the rules of nothingness. Now listen what it says. For the rules of things and my beloved of things, so we were just taught that we were things. Now the term Mumra, my beloved of things, yeah, so you, talking about us, beloved of things, because when we look here, what? Beloved star children. Yeah, this term here, Mumra, means beloved, and it tied back in at one time in ancient Egypt, because those of the ancient Egyptian order, the original ancient Egyptian order, the real true school of where you went and learnt about the universe, but you came out with 360 degrees, not 1 degree, like you come out in the universities today. Yeah, mastery of the heavens and the earth. Do you understand? Yeah. Excuse me, 360 degrees of the physical, 360 degrees of the esoteric, making you 720. And because the trials to become a member, to pass the bitter tests, obviously, of the this ancient Egyptian order, that's why they were beloved, you understand, by the people. They were beloved, which is where the term Mumra comes from, which is really its connection in our language, where they really got the word more from. Yeah, the word more from M-O-O-R is from Mumra, but to us it means beloved. Yeah, Star Trek, because of the bitter tests, as I say, that those who sought entry into this very sacred order, at the very best of the best, sought entry into and were beloved by the people for those who passed. You understand? Much like, I don't know, today, not so much a bit in England as well, but more so in America, where you might respect, I don't know, somebody who serves in the military. You understand? If you know, in the society, that's what they sort of give respect to the military, whether they agree with the war or conflict or not, but they respect the fact that people have put themselves up to protect the country. Do you understand? So in this context, you see here, my beloved of things, that we're a thing. Now it's saying that the rules of that are what? Are the exact same, because all things and a thing is all existence, and existence is all things. So as we were expressing previously, we're going to say it again to help aid understanding. A thing and all things can be one and the same. And that, what we were speaking about earlier, where we were looking at ourselves as a sperm, because through that delivery mechanism, you deliver in part of yourself, you understand, yes? But that part of you contains the whole of you. Yes, because when you're donating for the production of your child, it is a copy of all of you. All the sum total of your experiences, etc., up to that point, as well as all of a copy of your DNA, is translated in part. But it's also whole. Now, as a supreme being, you understand, we represent part. We are part of the what? That jigsaw puzzle that makes up the whole. But the part and the whole, when the person is truly merged, you can't differentiate from the part and the whole. The true jigsaw puzzle. You can't really see, in this context, this jigsaw puzzle, you can't see the seams even between them. As when you take a drop of water out of the ocean, it is an ocean. You understand? Yeah? But when you place that water back into the ocean, it merges back in, it becomes the ocean again, but you can't distinguish the individual, you understand, drop from the whole. Yeah, this is what's being described here. Yeah? And what maybe is more shocking for people, as we sort of read, briefly there in the Holy Tablets, well, who are you then? Because how far have you fallen? Yeah, you're not accepting. The Master Teacher over and over again is telling us who we are, but are we accepting it? Are you accepting your supreme being? Maybe because of the conditions that we find ourselves in, it doesn't appear real. You understand? For a man who's coming along since the 60s, telling you, hey, you're this, you're that, or whatever, but not from your a boosting up point of view. Yeah, that's one aspect where we need our self-esteem restored. Yes, of course. And we needed to be taught almost racism so we could be anti-racism. Yeah, because we wasn't seeing who were our enemies and that in and around ourselves. You understand? But now, as we've walked through these various different schools, our minds at least, had we walked them, obviously new people coming on board in the moment, not going to know all of that, but our minds should now be opened for the reality of who we are. We are supreme beings. We are responsible for this existence. In all of their religions, we are that most high. Now, we're not interested in worship. We're interested in the peace ship. Without us, there would be no existence. Because we represent existence as Pa'ut, within what? Pa'ut, or the all within all. No more represented by the woman. Yeah, and as we get into the science, as we're walking you sort of slowly here, between the science of male and female, you're going to understand, say, how it represents growth within existence in order to affect, you understand, these rules here and how that relates. Because all of this is a manifestation of divine thought emanating from our mind. You understand? Which collectively we're feeding into or projecting down from the mental. You understand? So this is a long-winded way, I suppose, of saying, you understand, we are a thing. Yeah, and things in this context at least are supreme beings. Yeah, as a starting point of that growth point. And in different stages, you're going to see that manifest as what? A sun. You understand? In another stage of us, you're going to see that, okay, well, that reflects, that's the human brain. Yeah, because of its ability to transform what they call brain etheric seeds, or the smallest particles in existence, from nothingness into somethingness. So these characteristics manifest themselves in human beings in different ways. Like, for example, the correlation between ourselves and the planet, which also has a central sun. Remember, we're made up of what? 71% liquid, 29% what they call solid. It's a correlation again to the planet. 71% water, 29% land. Yes, but it has a central sun. It's an orb, it has a central sun. That's 600 miles in diameter. You understand? So it has these same characteristics. Comet hitting the comet becoming a meteorite. A comet hitting the planet Earth, for example, is the same as what? A sperm hitting an ovum. Same thing. Listen, same thing. That's what I'm saying there now. Same thing. Yeah, so larger or smaller, whatever direction you go, at least with us, those patterns, that correlation, you understand, these rules exhibit ourselves in us, which many of the things that relates to, we've been ridiculed for. Yeah, by the haters. Yeah, because they don't have what we have. They don't have that connection to the source, you understand? And don't want to respect, because of our darker skin color, that we are their gods, the divinity within us. Yeah, because a lot of things in this society and this world, being that it's ruled by six ether, are anti-nature. It's anti-nature. Yeah, seedless grapes, seedless oranges. Yeah, anti-nature. Yeah, plastic surgery. What is that? Yeah, it's taking natural characteristics and trying to get the surgeon to enhance what you don't have naturally, that was previously maybe working absolutely fine. But because you went around to this or that, or went straight to this or that, then the surgeon's knife came in. And this has become the vibration pushed through the media. Anti-nature. Now all of a sudden, okay, well, now it's hip or fashionable to start removing some of these things now. Which what? Were defects in certain people. Let's keep it 100. They were defects in certain people seeking to move more towards what? What nature had created the first people to look like. You understand? But because we had hair and not fur, everybody being in love with fur, you understand, on the head, and not hair, that became, you understand, the standard of beauty. Yeah? So the more effective the human being is, the more beautiful in this society that is deemed to be. So if your fur is straighter, then, which is the lowest, you understand, genetic strength, lowest energy state for a human being in that context, in terms of their fur, that's more beautiful. The lighter the skin or the whiter the skin, which is the absence of that energy, that is more beautiful than somebody who's full of energy. Diamonds, which is the end point, yeah, or the removal of energy from coal, which is why it's so dense, you understand, are more valuable than coal, the black coal that has all of the energy contained within. And until they can find a way to make the diamond like the coal, but still look like a diamond, understood, which is tying themselves into the vine, they'll never give the credit to the coal, which is us. You understand? Only steal, take, rob, and kill, you understand, is the mentality that their gods created them to be. Let's keep it 100. You understand? So, long-winded way to answer your question. If it is not the case, then please ask further. I'll do my best to make it clearer. Any other questions to write in Nabab? And keep it moving.
No, there are no other questions.
So close your eyes if you don't want to get dizzy. Let's get back to where we were. Okay, so I need to go back. Right, so we were explaining that connection to the mental, that from that state of things that we projected down an aspect of ourself down to these lower planes. Understood? Yeah. So, and excuse me, in the context of our understanding that the Ka'ah, at least in showing one of its purposes, I should say, is it links, you understand, or creates that connection between us and the mental reservoir. Understood? As described in early tablets, like an etheric or umbilical cord, obviously that creates a connection. So the true new cycle meaning of an African is Afaf Raye Ka'a. You understand? We are of the spirit, you understand, of the sun. Yeah, we are the spirit. And so here, when we see the role of that, you can see that it shows our connection to the sun, that we are, as I say, being fed from the sun. When we look on the walls in ancient Egypt, and we see, for example, the very famous depiction of Ankh en Atun, who they call Ankhenaten, Ankh en Atun, or Nach en Atun, and we see the sun rays reaching out, each of them with a little hand at the end, some carrying a hand, some shown with an Ankh on the end, and say Ankh en Atun with his family and the pharaohs as the pharaoh in the position of Atun, receiving, you understand, that energy. You understand? So outformational ancestors feeding our informational present being. Do you understand? So we are both outformational and informational, you understand, which is what the science of Wu-Sabat is. It's the science of transforming information into outformation. The issue is that you don't realize you are the information. You are the thing has been tricked and placed in a certain formation, which in this context is other than what our ancestors intended by design. You understand? By design. And as I say, the sun in itself is giving it's receiving, it's also transforming. Do you understand? Which is why when we looked at the hieroglyphic symbol of Reye, it was an open mouth, wasn't it? Yeah. Same, you see? The open mouth. What does your mouth do? A mouth, now, interesting enough, an open mouth or lips is one, denotes intelligence, which we talked about yesterday, willpower. You know, these two symbols here denote the fact that it's a voluntary action to open one's mouth. It is a voluntary action to put one's arm, etc., and hand in that position. Understood? Here, though, is a involuntary action, showing the link to the source. As when a woman, for example, is breastfeeding, that's versus an involuntary systems. You understand? A mouth, open mouth, for us would be an outward position, because we breathe through our nose and breathe out through our mouth. We consider breathing in through the mouth as bestiality. Do you understand? So it would be an outward position. Now, interesting enough, what do they say in the book of John? They say, in the beginning was what? The Word. And the Word was God. So our symbol for Reye is showing, let's say, an open mouth. Like it could be breath, but it also could be sound. It's an outward projection. And then we've got what? The receiving hand in a receiving position, or the arm out, can give but also receive. You understand? So it gave life, and then what? As sons and daughters of Reye, we return back to the source, or that aspect of us, we return back to the source whence it came. It's whence it came. You know, it's taking ether energy around it like we are and transforming it, you understand, as part of its burning process, which expands the universe. You understand? Much like we are. We're what? Breathing in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide, and it feeds, you know, trees who you know, feed off of the carbon dioxide and transform that into oxygen. Do you understand? So we're transforming different types of energy at all times. Others can't do that. They feed off of what we release. Do you understand? So all of this is connected. You understand? And so we as a people, you understand, with the master teacher giving us that information, because the only one maybe I suppose in this context is doing this job in the way that it's been done, he's telling you, well, I'm that guy. Whether he is or not, but we won't know until we take, we absorb, we analyze, you understand, we apply, we study. Yeah? But knowing that, as I say, what's the alternative? Well, the white man has given you every other religion that you claim to follow today by way of multiple choice. And can he be trusted with your soul? The answer, by way of his story, not our story, by way of his story, is no. Yeah, if you look in his story, go and read John 8:44. Their own prophet was telling them, or their own savior was telling them, you are a liar and a murderer. That's their words, it's not mine. Yeah? So, and as we showed you last time about this, the war or the battle that's going on between, symbolically between Hara and Set, is to do with, as I say, our voluntary and involuntary systems within the human body. This is the good and bad angels, you understand, that they depicted in mythology on our shoulders, because your DNA and your body and everything about you is recording all of your actions. There's two beings on your shoulders. Your being is recording, well, how was this individual managed? Yeah? You're in division from the all. Yeah? In division from the all. Because of your perception, or our perception, thinking that we're separated. Yeah, we're in division of the all, but we're supposed to be part. That's what we open up the class with, isn't it? Yes, that affirmation. I am a part. We're saying it. So the reason, obviously, we're saying it is to remind ourselves So we're not that, because if we were that, we wouldn't have to say it anymore. You understand? And so in that, there's a war going on in between us, is to fall back within the whole and be subject to the rules and work within the system of nature, or do our own thing. And how's that working out for us? In this life, how's it working out for us? Yeah, not doing or not being who we're supposed to be. How is that working for us? Is it working? You understand? There's forces and people, understand, you have human beings who are invested in us not becoming part of the whole again. Understand? Because it suits their agenda, but it doesn't suit our ascension journey. Understand? Which is what which is why, as you well and well know, don't need me to explain that to you all, why they have targeted, understand, our relationships, the relationship between the male and the female. As we expand upon this now, we're going to see, well, why target that? Well, you're attacking genealogy, you're attacking the continuity, you're attacking our ability to create supreme beings with these inherent capabilities that our ancestors have blessed us with. Understood? Now, as I say, that link between the mental and, say, mind, showing you here the role of the ka'a. Yeah. Now, let's move to this. Any questions? Any questions before I get into that?
Let's see. This is a question from Judith. Can you show the map in Antarctica with the egg where we first landed? If we look to the right, it shows some human seeds were put in India before the Sands people, ?
Sorry, are you asking me if that is the case? The map, that might be a little bit tricky. I'm trying to think what class was that in that we had that. Now, was that in this one, or I think it was the one before, wasn't it?
Possibly, because then the question goes on to say yes or no. Explain, please.
Okay, well, is there another question? While I'm just trying to find that, what the person's talking about there. Now, are they talking about my image or the web-based image? I need to just clarify that. So I'll try and put it up on the screen.
It doesn't really clarify as to which one. I mean, when I saw that, I'm thinking of the picture that you showed previously on one of the classes.
Okay, bear with me.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Judy.
Okay. Sorry, can you see that on screen, yeah? The Egg Island?
I can see, yes.
So you'd have to ask you, you just need to clarify whether it's my diagrams. This is a Google image of Egg Island, which is in Antarctica, where in our story, in our series of events, our ancestors basically set up a base here before the last ice age. So Antarctica was a fertile continent, understood, and this is where we set up base here. Now the egg, interesting enough, is they call it Egg Island, but female DNA came from the Sirius star constellation. And when you look at Sirius, which I don't know if I had images of that. Maybe I did in the earlier part of the class. Let's see if we've got. Judith was making reference to it. I'm just going to switch back from that. So this is Egg Island, the physical place as it stands today. And I think if we're going back, Judith was referencing. Bear with me, people. Okay. So we were showing you the fact that cosmologically, when you look at because Sirius has been associated, remember, with Arashtat, who the Greeks referred to as Isis, in the saying, or Aset. And so this is where female DNA came from. The orbit of Sirius B, you understand, around Sirius A, makes an egg, you understand, which is, again, that's what reflecting the Dogon culture as well. You understand? And so we understand that, as I say, life was transported here. And this is showing us a comparison between the modern map and the map that the Dogon tribe had, who are descendants of the ancient Egyptians, or us as the ancient Egyptians. And what you see is two things. One, you see the egg, and secondly, because it's a binary star system, because Sirius C was collapsed, which I'm not going to go back through all that story again, but we collapsed Sirius C at one point, but its binary star movement creates a double helix. So the what's taking place above is manifesting itself here on Earth, or the same story, for lack of a better word, or series of events, is now manifesting itself on a lower plane of existence. Do you understand? So the dolphin was transported by way of Sirius. Do you understand? The word dolphin means womb. Understood? And those germs, were defecated in the waters of the Indian Ocean. Do you understand? And which led to us, obviously, over many millions of years, from single cell amoebas, to become mer-men and mer-women. Do you understand? Mer-women and mer-men. You understand? In the waters of this planet. We don't have an ape origin. You understand? That is a Caucasian origin. It's not to do with us. We started in the waters of this planet, placed there, as I say, by way of the egg, and we set up bases here on Egg Island. And our migration started, as I say, outwards here, from South Africa, because it was tsunamis that threw us out of the dense waters called oceans onto the land, in the sense being a more matured life form. But the reason why is because the women had larger lungs than the men, and so were able then to reside on land, initially living in trees, you understand, and resided on the land. And we came up, as I say, via way of the Akawango swamp from the Indian Ocean. You understand? This is where we ended up here, or as I say, resided out the waters. Women came on land first, men came along later, and this developed into the Sands people, in the sand of the Kalahari Desert, in the sand of South Africa. 4'5" in height for the females and 5'4" in height for the males. So that's the link to the Indian Ocean, because that's where the seeds were originally placed there. Not that we were in India, in the sand. Our seeds were placed in that ocean first, but we emerged from the waters in South Africa first. This is why we was explaining to you that when you look at the Khoisan language, it's a clicking sound. You hear that in the language. This was our early language before the FOX2 Pro gene was activated. You understand? So, and then when you look at how a dolphin speaks, you see the two things are in complete correlation with each other. In fact, if you go on YouTube, I think, and put on, do a search, I think it's called dolphin Dolphin Boy or something like that, and it's to do with there was a Nagaru male, Negroid male, who was born and lost his sight. And lost his sight from a young age, I think. Yeah, from a very young age, and he basically his body adapted, and he was basically able to see using sound. You understand? If you do some research on this particular guy, he can see using sound, literally. And if you look at his face, not maybe there's sound looks like a coincidence. He looks like a dolphin. Yeah, as a human being, but he can see with sound, showing, as I say, that characteristic is in there, because, as I say, dolphins can see with sound. That now in us, in the more revolved life form, is probably the better way to say it, is our third eye in us now. Do you understand? Yeah, which obviously allows us to see interdimensionally using sound. Or what the characteristics of sound in terms of waveforms. Understood? So, Judith, I'm not sure if that answers your question or whether I'm off the mark. So, if you can clarify, that'd be great. Harai and Bab, any questions there or feedback from Judith?
Judy says, I first saw it from one of our books shown on this class, not this Google image, a few classes ago.
Is that not what we're showing here right now? So I'm not sure. Yeah, if you can, it'll be difficult. Maybe go on our YouTube. If you can say what class it is, will help us out. But this is the recent stuff where we've been showing or talking about the Sirius star constellation.
Apart from that, there are no other questions.
Okay. Cool. Right. Okay. All right. Okay, let's see what we got now. So, so I think Jude raised an interesting point. So, again, we were sort of reminding ourselves of all these different patterns that exist here. And the Master Teacher explains something, I think it's CD6, Isle of Patmos, and about this story, as I say, he relates to the fact that everything has come from an event that took place in ancient Egypt, and that story has traveled around the world. You understand? So that story, as we start to uncover with the Master's secrets, that story is contained within us. You understand? The story of how we got here, how we arrived, how our origin here is all contained within us and without us. So we can look up at the so-called night sky and see our story. We can look within us, ourselves, and we can see that story. You understand? So in that regard, so I think he's tried to copy certain events of that story and mimic it, and it forms, as I say, the lion's share of the storylines of his movies. Do you understand? None being other than, as I say, that Matrix movie or whatever the case may be. As you said, if you go and watch the first one again, you don't want to watch the whole thing, and then forward to the end, they put the word. How many movies are there? There's 3 movies. I've even said this before. Probably you're getting tired of me saying the same thing. But there are what? There's very quickly. Let me try and write it. They put the word. Let me try and type it in. Yeah, they put this word in. Systems. Caps that. Yeah, right at the very end of the movie. Yeah, this appears on the screen. Yeah, system failure. Understand? System failure. There's 3 movies. They say that who was it? The Wachowski brothers are the ones who created that movie, but a lady named Sophia Stewart, a black woman, says that she wrote it. You understand? Now, there are 3 movies, 3 trimesters in a female. And look, it's here, male and female. They zoom right in on it. You see the M&F, male and female. System failure in the Matrix. The word Matrix means womb. So the story that keeps rolling itself around again, same kind of storyline. There's many movies, as I say, that we could recount that have this same journey, which it's a mythology on screen to them, but it's a story of the supreme beings of this planet, in the same universe, so on and so forth, or universes, the multiverses, which is us. That's our story. Remember, he creates myths. That's his nature, and lies and falsehoods and so on and so forth. And he's got his power. It's in this day and time through the media. You understand? So that's it's a black woman's story. Yeah, and that duality fight that we see in that story that we just showed you earlier, you understand, is again prevalent in there. Yeah, in the movie, there's a being by the name of Neo. So let me just get this back to where it was. Yeah, and he's being aided by a female who sort of is helping him periodically fight the same system. Do you understand? That he's easily battling against. Yeah, and I think in the 3rd movie, yes, well, who's he battling against? Well, talked about the voluntary and involuntary system there. You understand? Which in operation. Well, yes, your what's another aspect of your involuntary and voluntary systems? Well, is your immune system. Yeah, your immune system works involuntary, and voluntary systems are opposed. So when we come together as male and female, for example, and the male sperm is foreign to the woman. It's foreign, yeah, because it's outside of her. So when the sperm is deposited within the woman's womb, in a sense, it causes chaos in her waters. Yeah, because it immediately fires up her immune system, isn't it? You understand? And so she has to the sperm have to sacrifice, isn't it? Many sperm sacrifice. So the many are one, but they have to sacrifice in order for that one to make it to the egg. And then what does the woman do? Through her love, she has to put a protective shell around this new being or entity, understood, to protect it from her own immune system. Correct? So it was interesting that when the master teacher was asked about the Matrix, what did he say? He said, I'm on the side of the agents. When I was watching the movie, I was on the side of the agents. Yeah, because human beings come along and mess up environments, you understand? Create litter, you know what I mean? Mess, chaos. When nature system was working fine, we come along, manifestation, we come along and mess up the system. So, which was previously working in order. And I say primitive indigenous human beings on this planet seek to work within the environment, with the environment that they're in. They don't seek to go against the environment. So in that movie, who was fighting? The agents were a replica in the end of Neo, isn't it? They were a replica of him. So what's that? Well, yeah, in order to fight diseases, the immune system is going to replicate what the disease looks like, what the infesting party looks like, in order to destroy it. So they become part of each other, even though they're adversaries. You understand? They're a part of each other because your white blood cells have to have or mimic part of the disease in order to try and destroy it. Understood? So a battle goes on within the woman's body, yeah, which you might say is good versus evil. But it's not really good versus evil. The immune system is doing the job that it's supposed to do. You understand? But in order to understand those, because those rules are the rules, remember? Yeah, but in order to protect, somebody understood, well, okay, let's put the egg as a shield around the baby. You understand? So it can get to a point where it can grow sufficiently enough to be born, understood, by way of that mechanism. Do you understand? But it takes 2 years for the woman to recover from that process, and more so if she has a female child, because it takes from every part of her body as opposed to a male child. So this battle that's going on, as I say, in the movie The Matrix, the woman was helping the main character, wasn't it? Neo, giving him the kind of tools to navigate the system. Well, isn't that the same function as the egg? You understand? Protecting the child, isn't that the same function as the umbilical cord? Yeah, feeding food and nutrients to the baby. You understand? Whilst it's in the womb, a mechanism that's there that, as I say, allows the mother to transfer nutrients without it being compromised by the immune system. And if my memory serves me correctly, in the third movie, you've been fighting against this system, yeah, and then you ended up merging with the system. Yeah, merging with the same system you was fighting against. Do you understand? So when you look at all these different symbolisms from these movies, they're based on a lot of them are based on our story. Yeah, the only problem is we don't know our story. We know his, or we think we know his story. We don't know our story. In order for them to give us our story, a lot of people have had to die or they have their character assassinated in order to bring us these facts. So the fact that we're having to explain it to you in this fashion, yeah, let's keep it 100. Yeah, a man is doing a 135-year stretch, yeah, because of that. Because of us giving you now the ability to explain, yeah, exactly how it goes, exactly who we are, not what we became, exactly who we are, yeah, as supreme beings, and back it up with facts and align it to a civilization, as they call it, or civilizers who occupied the planet and built the greatest civilization, yeah, that everybody wants to claim, but the people who really did it, you understand, and repeated it to show that we really did it, understand, are in, as I say, the ghettos in America. They're in the council estates in England. They're in the ghettos in Jamaica. You understand? The shanty towns in various places around Africa. The meek dumbfounding the wise. Now, if you're the Egyptians, Arabs, build a new Egypt. Build another pyramid. If that's your people, build another one. We did it, didn't we? In Georgia. And people said, well, they're not real. Until somebody took a photo and saw standard column of waves emanating from the top of the pyramids, like a double helix formation. Yeah, because they depend on the shape of the pyramid. It takes light particles and transforms them into tachyonic energy. So as I say, if you're those people, how come you ain't build the next one? How come you haven't been able to continue what you sell to the world as what was did? If you're those people, if you're those descendants, why doesn't your Allah give you the same culture and skills and abilities of what those people had? And the fact that you've got this temple in New York with, as I say, pretty much young people, let's keep it 100, out there drawing, putting hieroglyphics on the walls, you understand? And it looks exactly like a living temple, what you saw in ancient Egypt, which is now a dead culture now. You're seeing those same things right over there. And it's being right there in the middle of the New York right in the belly of the beast. You understand? Right in the belly of the beast is where the birth of this new being, you understand, emerged from in opposition to their system. You understand? Because what is it? What is their system? Well, the beast is represented by a female, isn't it? Yeah, so you got the master teacher trapped in the belly of the beast. Same thing, isn't it? The womb of the woman, which is their system, yeah, who holds up the stature of liberty. Yeah, a woman holding a flame of fire. Yeah, which is what they use, the amber light, which is what it represents. Yeah, a system or mechanism which they use to burn down monuments, burn down knowledge to establish themselves as the authority to make their story authentic. And now we see even whether many arguments around the world where the Jews even today and more so in a lesser context Muslims are trying to turn their religious titles into a race, yeah, to rubber stamp or to put into authority to make themselves appear real when their stories in their religions have not proven themselves to be real outside of the books that their authors created. You understand? So we're dealing with a reality story in our regard. You understand? In that regard, it's to say the core of it, one essential hub of it is male and female. You understand? Now we run out of time, but we're going to just read the first page to give some insight to what we need to talk about next week. So, soulmates, yeah, Partarat soulmates. Nabab Yaanuwn. There's one, Likum, Mere, Nawapu, or Musbatu, yeah, beloved Nawapians. You wish to understand what Taba'ah nature says is your soulmate. 2. What in fact is a soulmate? 3. When Ka'atwi, two spirits become one but are soul. 4. And as such produce perfect Muachachu, Etherians or Ifrit beings. 5. This comes with Wakat, time and patience. 6. Taba'ah, nature does it by the rules of attraction. So we get another set of rules here. Yeah, rules of existence. We had the rules of things. You understand? Yeah, and now it's here, the rules of attraction. 7. And both persons must do their part by living up to what is expected of them. 8. This becomes perfect as those involved. 9. Musbatu or Nawapians, this is the way of Wu-Sabat or Wu-Nawap. 10. The continuity of our existence for male as being female, for male as being, yes, female as material, and time as a Akal mind. 11. Since mind is time and is the continuation of both Nathar, Wu-Nathar Tak, God and Goddess. 12 is about continuing of being, material, and mind. 13. And Akal mind as time is, that is a constant. So we've got, and we'll go into this more next week, but just to give you some thought on this, because might get accused of making it too deep. It's important that people understand what's going on. Now, otherwise there's no point. Now, the Lost Record of Time introduces us to this deity, and she's called Natharta Merit, understood? And she's referred to as the Koronomy deity. Do you understand? I show you there in the Temple of Dendora. Now, obviously, Koronomy is the gestures that you see a conductor make when they're directing an orchestra. Yeah, this is called Koronomy. So there is a divine song or a divine tune that is represented that brings us together in this context. Understood? So, which we're going to get into next week, but just for the purpose of this for now, we'll just give you a little bit of insight. So, we have material, in this context you see here. In fact, we might have a diagram for it. Let me see if I've got one. Get a bit clearer. So we've got male, being female material, and account, account, mind, or time. So these three principles in place. Remember, the existence, space, matter, and time. The three things are inseparable. You can't have one without the other. Now, what it was saying there, if we were paying attention, is that time is the third element, but mind, time is a constant, but mind is also a constant. So the mind aspect rides, for lack of a better word, time. Now, what does that mean? So in these three things coming together, this perfect union, well, let's think about a song. So if you think about a music tune, for example, let's say this aspect is the space, this aspect is that which is occupying the space, you understand? So if I think about a musical tune, the rest part, you understand, is just or even more important than the part of the instrument that's making the sound. Yes? So, and a musician, and we'll play a tape next week, and the master teacher explained this in a class, where saying, well, that's where the soul resides. That's where the person, the musician, really feels it, is in the rest part. Before they then boom, or in between when they're playing what instruments. So let's take a set of drums. Got the space, then the person's making the sound of the drums, understood, and then the third element, which makes it, you understand, the difference between imperfect and perfect is timing. Timing. So if I'm the musician, I'm playing a set of drums, what really makes it that soulful is I bring space, understood, in union with material, which is the sound. And then basically the unifying part is to bring them in perfect timing. Then magic happens. But what's driving the timing? What's driving the timing is the mind, is the mental. It starts, a person just doesn't make music over the top. It starts with the mind first. So the mind is riding the time as the constant. Because something has to now manage these three components in one, which provides, in the context, the perfect drum pattern or the perfect tune. You understand? It's being made in that context. Why you see merit as that chironomy, directing. Do you understand how all of this hangs together? So when we continue next week, we'll go through soulmates and then break it down further into stuff that we talked about earlier to make it make sense. Absolute, obviously, space and absolute material, and what happens when those two things come together, and obviously time there coming in as the constant. So, are there any questions before we close today?
Well, in fact, I've just had a response from Judith, and she says that, yes, you did answer everything.
Okay, much appreciate, Judith. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and that, yes, got it. Thank you for going so thoroughly.
No problem. No problem at all. And at the Outfor. Any other questions?
No other questions.
Okay, so just to give you a little piece, because as I say, we're dealing with science. Male, being, material, and female. So think about the space. I mean, just to keep it simple, the space, and then things occupying the space, matter or material, you understand, coming incongruent or to coming towards each other in perfect sequence, magical things are created. Do you understand? But it's the timing, isn't it, that tune that really sets something apart from another. If the timing's off, the tune don't sound right. If it was a drumming, the tune doesn't sound right if the timing's off. Do you understand? So timing brings those two things, you understand, space and what is occupying it together. You understand? All being driven by the mind. So mind rides time as the constant. Understood? And we'll see what that looks like in the context of, as I say, males and females in some detail there. So soulmates are designed to create star children or supreme beings. That is that is the purpose of us becoming soulmates, is to produce the optimum offspring. You understand? Between us, as I say, by finding the right person, really, in this regard. You understand? And we see the opposite of that in play at the moment to destroy the genes. Yeah. Okay. On that note, we are back next week. I think the 7th is the next class, so just the way things have fallen this month. Excuse me. So I'm trying to find the things people see on the screen. Just past that. Okay, so yeah, 7th of May, next class. Yeah, someone else. So the parts will be out. We'll edit them and get them on the YouTube channel this week, so people can go into those in more detail before the next class. Appreciate we've given a lot of information out, and people need to go back over it, study. In lieu of that, I say the live version should be on the Facebook page if you can't wait for it to appear on YouTube. So next, back to our normal cycle. Next month, so it'd be the 7th of May for class 1 and the 21st of May for part 2 in May. Yeah, so next Sunday we will continue this. So let whoever you need to let know. We'll put the details on our YouTube channel, on the Facebook page for the invite, but you'll get notification from Zoom as well. So on that note, appreciate everybody attending. Good questions today and good engagement. Appreciate that. As I continue to keep those questions coming. We'll see you next week for us to go more into this detail. We thank our ancestors. Thank Pa Nabab Yaanuwn, the master teacher, Dr. Malachi K.Z.York, because, as you say, 9 parts from literally 2 verses out of a very large book there, giving you that detail. Okay, everybody take care. We'll see you soon. Okay, Wadu.